Hi everybody, this is A7X Fan Ben here with Godmason and Xerix, and this is a very special episode number 31 of the Pirates CSG podcast, and we're calling it Unreleased and Unexpected because we are about to go over just over 40 essentially brand new game pieces for Pirates CSG that have almost never been seen before. So, and right before that though, just a few little news things, or well, big news that you probably already know about. Miniature trading, unfortunately, is likely to be shutting down in late November, and I found this out in late August. I've been doing a bunch of stuff for it, and there's a link in the podcast description on YouTube already, actually, for the thread on miniature trading I made about that with all the details, and I've got a plan to kind of save the site to some extent, or at least save like the content on it, like the forums and whatnot. Or at least some of it. So I'm trying to optimize Pirates with Ben, my fan site, and then you can see the thread on miniature trading for progress there. But the reason I mentioned that, obviously huge news and really horrible news, maybe the worst news the community has gotten in a really long time. But the reason we're doing this podcast is partly because of that, because I reached out to Woelf on Board Game Geek and messaged him asking him if he had any official spreadsheets from Wizkids to help me build a master spreadsheet of all the sets and all the game pieces ever released and, unreleased, like Return to Savage Shores and whatnot. And he did have them, so that helps a lot with the flavor text, and it helped to speed up the process of building the master spreadsheet, which is now done, and I'm going to release it in spreadsheet form and the Google Sheet once this podcast is out. And basically, in the Wizkids official documents, there were a bunch of things that I had never seen before and I wasn't expecting to find. So, and I messaged Woelf a little bit about it, so it's really exciting. So a lot of the documents from Wizkids, I'm going to release those as well. And a lot of them are like pre-final, kind of like draft spreadsheets and Word documents of the sets before they became like the final public version. So sometimes it doesn't have flavor text, sometimes point costs are different. But the most exciting thing that we're going to go over tonight are the game pieces that were never released and just kind of got lost in the shuffle, or were kind of canceled in a way. So that's what we're going to be going over tonight. How are you guys tonight, though, despite miniature trading?
Pretty good overall.
Yeah. Nice.
Disappointed about what looks like is going to happen to miniature trading, though.
Yeah, I know, it's devastating.
Yeah.
All right.
Who knows? Maybe we'll figure out a backup for him. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what Ben's trying to do with his site.
Yeah, I'm trying to make my fan site optimized, so it's a long process, but anyway, so I know it's kind of weird. It's kind of, I talked to Woelf about this on Board Game Geek briefly. It's kind of like this episode and the reveal of these unreleased game pieces is kind of like a ray of hope, a ray of light almost in the dark times. And it's kind of parallels what Woelf did with Return to Savage Shores, because he released that set on miniature trading gradually soon after the card game was announced that was, a flop and not very exciting for Pirates fans. So anyways, it kind of parallels there. And then you may have seen my poll I made about the different what's true and what's false and stuff like that. So we could talk about that at the end once we've already seen all these. So I think some of the answers to that poll will be kind of shocking, and that was modeled after something Woelf did about Return to Savage Shores as well. So without further ado, I'm going to scroll down and people can start to see the unreleased game pieces. So I guess we could go in the same order we've done in the past, like me, then Godmason, then Xerix, just to keep it simple. So I'll start things off. And the first game piece is from Spanish Main. So this spreadsheet, as you'll see once I release the documents, it was dated February 18th, 2004. And Spanish Main came out in June of that year. So this game piece and some of these are over 14 years old, basically. So it's like one of the early, or not necessarily early, but probably one of the early drafts of Spanish Main. So pretty crazy. All right, so the first one is an English ship from Spanish Main, and it's called HMS Cordwainer. This is a 7-point master with 4 cargo, L move. Cannons are 2S, 3L, 3L, 2S. And when this ship is at full cargo capacity, her move is S. And you notice I didn't change the ability text for most of these, only need to fix a couple typos, but that's basically the ability of the Darkhawk 2. So, and that kind of explains the cost. So this would be the cheapest 4-master in the game by 2 points, because the cheapest released 4-master is 9 points. There's a few of them. So this immediately would catapult toward the top of the best English gunships in the game, because it's not as extreme as the Darkhawk 2, which has 8 cargo for 10 points, which is totally overpowered. But I think this is similarly overpowered because you can add a captain, helmsman, and another crew and not even bump up against a limit. So then with the captain, helmsman, you have LS speed for just 12 points with good cannons, captain, and helmsman. So this is really good and, quite frankly, too good, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's probably why it wasn't released, because this is in line with those crazy Darkhawk 2 numbers. The only real difference to me looks like obviously the cost and half the cargo.
Yep. Yeah, it's not quite as good as a hybrid, but this would be another great English gunship and a cheap one at that. She would probably compete with HMS London because she's similar but 4 points cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if this would compete with the London. This might just completely dwarf out the London in terms of pure effectiveness.
Yeah, especially in small games.
There's no way to get a captain, helmsman, and same action twice crew, I think, because that combination there is 8.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
So unless, this might be one of those places where a point reducer might be interesting because there's enough cargo space.
Yeah, but then you run up against, then you decrease the speed with a 4th crew. That's the only problem there.
True.
Yeah.
Then you move SS.
I'm looking at the YouTube stream here. Cazador is thinking running both the London and this with the Darkhawk 2 to just make ruin everyone's day.
Yep.
He's throwing Hidden Cove. Ha ha.
Yep. Wow. Any other thoughts, or it's just overpowered?
None for me. It's pretty obvious why it was never released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is
weird, but I digress.
The next ship is another English four-master, also from Spanish Main. The majority of the ones that we're starting with come from Spanish Main. HMS Artegal, 8 points, 4 masts, 4 cargo, L move, guns are 3S, 3L, 3L, 3S. This ship sinks when her last mast is removed. Another one that's just too good, and it's a good thing that it was never released. This probably would have still been competitive at 9 or 10 points.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Yeah, it's a very good ship.
Yeah, it's like the London. It was like the London might have started out as this and then became the London after they changed up the ability a little bit. You've got serviceable cannons, decent cargo, decent base move, good size, and that's a very build-friendly point cost. I mean, just right off the bat, you could combo this with the aforementioned Corey Wainer, and this one you could fit a captain, helmsman, same action twice crew onto. And you could run both of these guys to have 24 points or somewhere 25 points, like half a build total. And you've got 2 very good gunships with the rest of your remaining build total to go toward, like a souped up gold runner or 2 or 3, depending.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the Article does remind me of the Teague a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
I have a feeling that the majority of these we're just going to have shocking reactions to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Especially, the ones from, what looks like the first ones here from Spanish Main, like the bar setters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back when they were just playing with what things should cost.
Yeah,
and I was like, exactly. I think this should cost this because, why the heck not?
Yeah, there's nothing to base it on. Good point.
Yeah.
Which is probably why there's so many odd point costs in Spanish Main.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I forgot to mention, this is the first time God Mason and Xerix have seen these. This is a live reaction podcast, so it could be kind of shocking indeed. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's sort of hard to contextualize them in my mind because we haven't recorded one of these in a bit, but some of the more egregious ones are still pretty obviously OP.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because of how cheap they could be.
Speaking of cheap, what do you think of the next one?
All right, moving on then now?
Yeah, we're good.
Why not?
All right, that's me. Next up, we have the HMS Intrepid. 8-point, 3-masted ship with 5 cargo, base move of L, 4S, 3L, and 4S, and no ability. This is like the Carolina, but English.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, they even recycled
expensive.
the name.
Yeah, 1 more cargo, slower, and then 1 point more. I think it's pretty
Yeah,
solid.
but I would argue this would probably be the superior ship just because of, existing English crew options over American options.
Yeah, maybe.
Even though it's slower, this is probably a far superior ship.
I don't know about far superior. I think the Carolina is great for the Americans, especially as a gold runner. I could see this maybe as a hybrid if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a solid ship.
If you really wanted it to be a hybrid with 2 4S guns, well, it's not that good of one.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're, really lucky on those dice. Mm-hmm. And I've known people who are really lucky on those dice. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, true. It's always just down to luck.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if the Intrepid would be a Spanish ship, Cazador. I mean, it kind of feels like it with that cargo.
Yeah, I think it feels like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But also, if this had been in the game, then it would give the English, a viable or, a go-to gold runner, kind of like what the Banshee's Cry became. Like, if you're building, a 40-point pure English fleet, this would be in there every single time.
Yeah.
Just because of that point cost. It doesn't matter the size.
Yeah. If you think that, you should see the original version of HMS Antelope, but we'll get to that some other time. It's crazy.
Oh, man.
Anyway, all right, I don't want to tease things too much. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
all right, this next thing looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is where it starts to get really fun. Well, the first one is fun too, but anyway. All right. So the next one would have been in Spanish Main, another English common ship, HMS Ramsgate. So not like the fort. So now it's a ship. Before it would become a fort. So it's a 4.2 master, 2 cargo, S+S move. Cannons are 1S, which I love seeing. And the ability is this ship cannot carry crew, which is kind of ugly.
So, Ben, those historical costumes you made with, the 1S cannons, that's never reasonable. Wizkids would never do that.
Yes, exactly.
Well, they were thinking about it.
I know. Well, I know it was in the game from the first set. It was like the first thing they did was like rank 1 cannons. I know. It's so justified.
So,
I know it justifies.
If this had existed, then, the Endeavor would probably have 1L cannons.
Oh, well, that's another...
cost another 30 points.
Yeah, that's something I just saw earlier tonight too. I think I still have to release the actual documents, and I was thinking another podcast could be like changes, like more minor changes rather than just new game pieces. But on that note, I think HMS Lord Algernon, instead of her middle 3 2Ls, I think they were all 1Ls. And I think there's some other ships. I think one of them was weird. It was like El Dorado, the pirate ship. It might have been like 4S 1L 4S instead of 2L or something. It was really weird. So it's kind of jarring to see it, but I know it kind of validates me. It makes me feel better about my rank 1 cannons and historical customs for the most part. So
Wizkids thought about it, but they didn't actually do it. I'm going to be obnoxious and say that.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason they probably didn't is because if you include 1S cannons from the ground up, it means that there's never a possibility you'll miss unless, there's some kind of extra force, a canceller cancels out your captain or something. Or they would exist in fringe cases.
I think they might have...
Maybe they were thinking that this would be something like, when the Nubian Prince first showed up, it was a completely brand new ability never seen.
Yeah.
And probably maybe shouldn't have reappeared on larger ships.
Yeah.
This might have been something they were thinking that, okay, it can't carry crew, it's, piddly and small, ramming will take care of it, so let's give it the ability to never miss its shots when it shoots, assuming it gets shots in.
Yeah, I think they might have done it also because they wanted cannons to be boostable or whatever, or buffable. So they didn't want to. They might not have wanted all these rank 1 cannons, because then the World Hater crew they went crazy with faction bonuses and World Haters, which would be irrelevant because one always misses. So anyway, but onto the ship. I find it interesting that I'm pretty sure the Ramsgate Fort costs 4 gold, and this is a 4-point ship, which is kind of funny. The ability really holds her back because you can't put a captain on and make her a cheapo little English gunship. That being said, I would probably use her as an empty gold runner that has, really accurate cannons for defense, and or in a big game, she would be a decent tugboat or just a ship to defend a fort with, things like that. So it's a good ship, just not quite as good as some of the other 4 or 3-point ships in the game.
Algeciras would eat her lunch.
Yeah.
Just put a captain on Algeciras and you'll destroy this thing easily.
The ability really holds it back in terms of gameplay wise. But this is, an important ship because if this had been in there, the precedence that this would have set would probably have cleared the way later down the line for other larger ships that didn't have that ability with 1S cannons. Maybe not, all 1S, but, imagine, if, the Cordwainer or the Article or the Intrepid, even if one of those cannons was a 1S, that meant it would always hit, with their other stats or whatever. Well, okay, true enough.
Yeah,
if you roll a
almost
1,
always.
but,
Yeah. I do find it interesting. I'm not sure. The English are listed on the far left of the Spanish main spreadsheet. So I'm not sure if it would be really cool. As a side note, HMS Lord Eldrina is my favorite ship, and I think she's the first one listed with rank 1 cannon. So it might have been the case where my favorite ship would have been the one to start like a rank 1 cannon trend, which I would have loved.
Yeah, even more dangerous.
I know, this would be great. All right, anyway.
Yeah.
Right, Cazador is wondering if you could put, or would you put equipment on this? It can't carry crew. It doesn't say anything about equipment.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, it doesn't say anything about equipment because this was from Spanish Main.
Yeah.
Yeah, but equipment, exists nowadays. So assuming that this got released, in some way, shape, or form, this got released today or soon enough, you could put equipment on it. Maybe.
Some of it I would, some of it I wouldn't. I would say double shot.
Yeah,
because the rank is so good. Double shot and maybe exploding shot.
Yeah.
Wait, that would fit with the point cost, I think, too. Because exploding shot, I believe, is 3.
Yeah.
And double shot is 1.
Yeah.
So that's 4 points. Just don't ever roll the 1 on, your shots. But
yeah.
That's a good idea, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to jump onto the very interesting next piece, if I may.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the next one is kind of a surprise to most people, I'd imagine, but not as much to me. This is an English fort that was originally planned for Spanish Main. And that might sound kind of weird because forts were originally introduced at Crimson Coast. But if anybody remembers, there is a strange ship from Spanish Main that did allude to forts.
Yeah, the Windjammer.
Windjammer, correct. Its ability was forts cannot hit this ship, which made absolutely no sense at launch for Spanish Main. But
because there's no forts.
Coast came out, it became relevant, I guess. This fort was going to be a rare fort. Its name was Limehouse Cove. It was going to be 5 gold and have 2 3L guns. Its ability was, when a ship docks here, you may repair all of her masts.
Whoa!
To me,
all of them.
Yeah, and because of how picky the game's rules were about wording, I don't see anything in here about a repair action. So it sounds like the second you dock there, ship's fixed.
Yeah, that's
kind of like the UT trees.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of
although I think trees only did 1 mast, didn't it?
No, trees fully repairs your ship when you.
Really?
Yep.
Well, yeah, the wording on trees is a bit, more extensive, but there's timing about revealing the treasure, etc., and so forth. But you can instantly repair your ship, bring all the masts back into play.
Yeah.
Oh man, Limehouse.
Yeah, this is crazy. It's weak in terms of defense, but then if you dock here even just once or twice in a game, you could get huge value out of it. So, yeah.
This would be a game-breaking campaign.
Ship.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This would have to, go up from 5 to maybe 20.
Yeah. Yeah, or
I would use it in a campaign at all.
Yeah, I think either banned or I like I've done with a lot of other things, I like having a cap on it, so maybe you can repair 1 mast automatically when you dock or something. So.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah.
So when a ship docks...
Another thing would be with wine, I think you can unload at forts, and then you could also have custom abilities that let you dock at enemy forts, which you normally can't do, because that could make this crazy. Like a 10-master getting all the masts back when it docks.
So when a ship docks here, okay, I know sea monsters got introduced in Davy Jones' Curse, and I forget the exact ruling for their ability, but can a sea monster touch an island?
Yeah.
Or
dock?
You can't explore to load the treasure, but
you should be able to work that out. Yeah, that should work.
And since it doesn't specify that it has to be a friendly ship, well, okay. I guess part of the fort ability is it only an English or friendly ship can dock there. You could use this then, in conjunction with the English native canoes. Prepare the sea monsters!
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or another way to repair subs, maybe.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's a good point, too.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can move on to the next one, which is not part of the first faction.
All right, we're moving on now. No more Englishmen. Time for some good old-fashioned pirates. Yar. It's too bad we weren't able to do this 2 days ago on Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Oh, was that 2 days ago?
Yeah,
the
19th.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. We have a common pirate ship, the X-Hyle. 7 points, 3 masts, 2 cargo, base move L, 3 4L cannons. And when this ship is pinned, you may kill a crewman on the ship that pinned you. Huh. All right.
That sounds actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty solid.
But I'm trying to think, because this sounds like an ability that's in the game, but I'm drawing a blank on what I've seen this on.
The ability is it's slightly different text. So
yeah,
it's like Captain Jack Hawkins from Spanish Main.
It's the inverse. It's instead of when you're rammed, it's when you're ramming.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's like the opposite of those mosquito ships, like the Glorious Treasure.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah. Interesting.
That is kind of bizarre, though. I mean, I purposely didn't fix it because I wanted to include the original ability text. But yeah, that is strange because it doesn't really make that much sense. It's really strange.
Other than a suicide ship or something.
A ship that pinned you. You know what?
I guess it's the same.
This ship might have been from a draft of the game where the rules were that when you were rammed, you were pinned.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Something like that.
I think it's the same. I guess it's the same as the ability because it says when this ship is pinned, you may kill a crewman on the ship that pinned you, which is a ship that you did ram. So it's confusing. Yeah. It's good that they cleaned it up because this is more confusing than what we know about. Yeah, it is weird. So I do like the ship though because it does seem like a suicide ship, and it's nice and cheap for a 3-master. So decent ship, not great but decent. Kind of like a poor man's version of the Ballista in a way from the same set.
Oh yeah, a Ballista.
Yeah.
I would take Ballista over this any day because Ballista is much, much faster.
Yeah.
And bigger.
Yep.
Yeah, well, not by much. This is a 3-master. But maybe this became the Ballista. Because remember the Ballista's cannons, they're all 4Ls except for the back one, which is a 3S.
Yes, yeah.
That's true, and I'm pretty sure the Ballista has very little cargo as well.
Yeah, same cargo.
Yep.
I mean, the Ballista's 2 points more, it's 9. It's got, a cleaned up version of that ability.
I bet you're right. It's so similar that it's very possible that they were adapted.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one up. If anybody.
It's me. Kind of.
Wait.
Sorry.
Ben, I believe that's you.
Yeah.
You tackled
the next one. I was looking at YouTube. Yep. Yeah, so the next one is a pirate rare crew called Blackfoot Bill. And a little trivia, I think this crew was replaced by Captain Blackheart. I'll have to check soon, but it's they definitely did that right, in my opinion, because you'll see this guy's ability. 2 points, and when this ship is damaged, remove any crew member except this one instead of a mast. So that's a really interesting ability that we've never seen before, so brand new ability. From 2004, February 2004. I know, it's great. Maybe they came up with it in 2003 or something crazy.
This might have been like the proto version of the sack ability, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because I'm pretty sure it turned into Blackheart. So, yeah, it's a cool ability. It gets, I don't know, it's kind of difficult in a hurry. It would be best on really big ships with a lot of cargo, and then oarsmen around and crew you could afford to lose, but most gunships don't have a lot of crew they can afford to lose. So it's decent. I'm glad it's pretty cheap. I would try using it. Hopefully I will at some point. But it's a little...
Find a way to get this onto a treasure ship. Find a way to get him onto a treasure ship like the Bout one. Using Warlord Cavendish to bring him on.
Yeah.
2 points that, doesn't eat into the build a whole lot. Cavendish is also sim action twice. Brings some oarsmen,
Yeah, as you normally
That becomes really good.
How does this interact, though, with cargo wreckers?
When this ship is damaged, I would take that to mean when this ship would lose a mast.
Yeah. Or...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think ramming or shoot action. So my imagination is taking it the direction of cargo destroyers can do 2 per hit.
Yeah, exactly. I would say 1 cargo and then 1 crew, but no masts. That's probably what would work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, El Cazador just made that comment about
Yeah.
the treasure ship too. Nice.
Yeah, the treasure ships.
Nice.
Or, the Zeus. I mean, because then the Zeus doesn't have treasure ships, so you could use point reducers to a certain degree, at least.
To a small degree, because after the first oarsman, they do take up space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
But, there it is.
Anyway, the next one up is an unreleased pirate fort. Again, this one is called the Devil's Throat. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
Devil's Maw. That's like, the other word for it.
Yep. So I think this was sort of the prototype of it. This one would have cost 2 gold, had a trio of 2L guns, and then its ability would have been, when a ship docks here, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, this ship loses its next turn.
That's weird.
Yeah. And then if you
see like a little note.
Yeah.
Why would you
ability
do that?
rum trade?
Yeah,
that's why you're not getting your turn. Why is the rum always gone?
Yeah, so I can imagine the flavor text would be something about rum making all the people drunk there. So
hey,
yeah, this one I find really cool and interesting. I can't wait to use it because it's ridiculously cheap, good armament, not super strong, only 3 cannons, but still 2L is great, of course. And then the ability is just really bizarre because you don't want to unload there, you don't want to repair there. It's a weird one. Really cool though, I think. I like the trade-off between the cost and guns versus the negative ability. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you use this in a campaign game, maybe this isn't like, a frontline fort.
Yeah, exactly.
Like on the front line of a battle, but this is like, the fort on the island closest to your home island.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't matter so much, if a ship loses its next turn.
Yeah.
Or, bring along a re-roller to intentionally re-roll the die to try to get, not the 5 or 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one's really cool. All right.
I think it's your turn.
Me? I go on for the next one. All right. Only 3 pirate pieces covered from Spanish Main. Now we're moving on to the Spanish. And, this is interesting. This is a common ship, El Pulpo. 10, almost said 10 gold. Good grief. 10 point cost, 4 masts, 6 cargo, base move L, 4S, 3L, 3L, 4S, and no ability. Okay, what I find weird right off the bat here is that it's listed as common.
Yeah.
Since
that is an interesting
ships are usually uncommon.
Yeah, same as
going back up, looking at this, it's the same as the Cordwainer and the Artigo.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I think that's why I emphasized common when I talked about the first one. Yep. Yeah, it is strange.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But this is like, okay, because of the point cost, I'm going to compare this like, Spanish Dover. All right, but it's up in the air as to which would be the better ship overall.
Yeah, this one's really interesting. I like the thought of it as like a Spanish treasure galleon, kind of like some of the other ones we've seen, like the early large 4-masters.
Yeah, La Joya del Sol.
Yeah, this one's slow, but it has a lot of cargo for a pretty cheap cost. So this would be a great treasure hauler, especially in a large game when you can make a lot of trips and get a ton of coins back or resources or whatever. The other thing I find really interesting is that El Pulpo is that...
it's that 2-master from Davy Jones' Curse, I think.
Exactly, the Spanish ship that does exist. So they really nerfed it. That ship is super boring and not. It's like 10 points plus 1 to boarding rolls, 2 cargo or 3 cargo and 2 mass. So I think they should have done
I'd take this one over that one every day, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, really big downgrade. It kind of shows the reverse power creep too, even in Davy Jones' Curse, the 6th set. So oh well.
This one reminds me a lot of HMS Dover, but it's a Spanish take on the same. More cargo, but a little bit slower and poorer armament.
Yep. Yeah, not as good as a hybrid.
Cannons are serviceable enough to where if you wanted to, you could run this as a hybrid.
Yeah, I'd probably do.
In theory, yeah.
Could, but it's like the basic tenets of like, or like the characteristics of the factions that was established was the Spanish were good at getting gold. The pirates had strong crew and reasonably poor ship selections in comparison to the other two. And the English had really good gunships, but suffered a little bit in the gold department.
Yeah, the Dover, I would say the Dover is a little better, definitely better multi-purpose. This one is maybe better as a gold runner, but mostly in the larger games, so you can make a lot of trips. So Yeah, it's a cool one, no doubt. All right. I guess we'll move on to the next one. I don't know if this is Il Duce. Not sure if that's the pronunciation, but...
I want to guess Duce.
Okay, cool. This is a Spanish uncommon ship, also would have been from Spanish Main. It's a 3-master uncommon, 11 points, 3 masts, 4 cargo, SS move. Cannons are 2S, 3L, 2S. And if this ship has a captain, add +1 to the die roll for all cannon shots, which that ability text got changed slightly. But anyway, it's the same idea. So if you have a captain, +1 to cannon rolls. So this one is a solid gunship and maybe a little bit of a hybrid, but more of a gunship. So not too exciting compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, but just a solid overall ship in general. So good stats from almost across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely one that would compete for the title of one of the better 3-masters in the game had it been released.
Mm-hmm. Solid.
Good speed too. Considering that, a lot of the ships from Spanish Main were like, a base move L or a base move S. There weren't that many ships. I mean, even right here in this little spreadsheet, I count, 3 ships that have like a conjoined base move.
Yeah.
S plus something or so.
Yeah, it got faster.
This would be a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one overall.
That was like the first thing that got boosted overall.
Cool. Yeah, it's not as exciting as the other ones, but still a good ship. So, all right.
Mm-hmm. It's got like the forerunner of the world-hating ability there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up is another Spanish ship. This one's common. I believe its name, La Cazadora, reappeared later, or at least something similar did.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, La Cazadora was a 2-masted sloop from Revolution.
Yep.
Okay.
The footnote here says, originally named El Corazon del Mur, that ship was later changed to the ship released in Spanish Main, and this ship was left behind. Aww.
Yeah, that's the ship. That's the note I added. So, and that's something that people will see if they want to go through all the original Wizkids documents. They'll see kind of weird oddities like that, and then there's also some more of those coming up later on. So, and yeah, you can kind of see it's kind of similar to the Corazon del Mar, which they changed the name as well to have, I guess, better Spanish. So anyway, but yeah, you'll see some similarities as we go along.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, La Cazadora, as it would have appeared in Spanish Main, would have been an 8.3 master, 3 cargo, L move, and all 2L guns, no ability. I think this would have been a really good cheap warship.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
So in comparison of a gunship, this or Il Duce, or Duce, whatever, which would be the better gunship between those two, just right there?
I would say Il Duce because it's considerably faster and has more room for crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just depends on the points you have available. So, got 3 points, might as well get the better one. But I do love the armament of the Cazador, though. I just love that.
Mm-hmm. And the low cost. Nothing else is particularly weak about it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's great. Reminds me of like the Monte Cristo from Davy Jones' Curse, but maybe a little bit better because that one's like 11 points. So,
yeah.
Similar style.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Do you want to take the next one, Xerix?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna check the Ethan on the YouTube. We can clarify the Kraken rules either on Facebook or in the Discord.
Yeah.
And once Ben releases the spreadsheet, it should be, I think, publicly available. Ben will probably make a post on it on Facebook or Discord, mini trading, wherever, where you can download it.
Yeah, you could. It's all in the description, so you can just look at that. But of course, people won't, so whatever.
And then,
it'll be coming along soon.
Yeah. And then Cazador here, La Cazador, El Cazador del Pirata, and La Cazador Revolution would be a fun thing to use. Exactly.
That would be fun.
Because none of them would violate the duplicates rule. Anyways, moving on now. Next up for the Spanish, common ship, La Vagabundo. Oh no, it's a vagabond. Watch out. For 10 points, you get a 3-master with 3 cargo, base move L, 3S, 2L, 3S, and this ship cannot be shot at while docked. Interesting. This appeared, I think, probably... I don't know when this ability first appeared, but I know that the Pirates got it on a 1-master in Revolution, the Coral.
Yeah, it might be on the first one, maybe.
So, if the Coral is the first ship to have that ability in the game, then this would have been quite interesting if this had been released.
Yeah.
Because the easy workaround for, the Coral is it's only got 1 mast. You could ram it to death. This, with 3 masts and decently armed cannons, this would be a much, much harder get at to attack if you didn't have the first shot on it,
Yeah.
or if you were unprepared or lazy. But it's just kind of in the middle ground, I'd say.
Yeah.
You know, the cannons are not very, very good, so it'd be like, you know, a second ranked gunship, I'd say. And there's not enough cargo or speed for it to be a really good gold runner, which is what, you know, that ability would best be used for.
Exactly.
So, man, even on the unreleased stuff, Spain gets shafted.
Yeah, they get a bunch of pieces though, and they got some good stuff, and we'll see more. You'll see more later, so you might get excited at some of the later pieces. But anyway,
all right.
Yeah, this one I find boring outside of the ability. The ability makes it interesting, but outside of that, it's quite average in every way. So it's solid, kind of a middling gunship that I would prefer to station at like a fort in a campaign game. But other than that,
yeah, use it to guard the Devil's Throat. And don't mind if we like, you know, dock it there.
yeah, that's what I did CG1 with some ship. But yeah, it's kind of boring outside of the ability. So
yeah, dock it there and lose your action.
Yeah, no big deal. It's a 10-point throwaway ship, practically.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah, so the next one is another Spanish ship from Spanish Main. This one would have been uncommon, and this one is La Maldición. And you'll notice this one is very similar to the Asesino de la Nave, and so it seems to be the original version of that ship, but because the name and ability are different, I decided to include them. There's some other off cases, should have talked about this at the beginning, but there's some other cases of this happening that I didn't include in these unreleased pieces because they were so similar that it wasn't really new. So this is one of the ones that's the least new in a way. And there's a few coming up later on that are very close to what we already know has been released. But anyway, so this one is a 12.3 master, 4 cargo, L move, all 2S cannons. And in a turn when this ship damages another ship, the damaged ship loses an extra mast. So instead of the Asesino with her cargo wrecking ability, it's got this interesting extra damage ability, which is kind of cool. So almost kind of like a weird broadsides attack type thing where you could hit and then you get extra damage. So and
more useful.
Cannons. Yeah, exactly.
Like the polished version of this, or I guess the downplayed version of this, turned up later. You know, the Fire and Steel version of Captain Mission. Or, you know, that ability. This could have been the root of where that came from.
That's a good point.
Although, this is worded weirdly.
I know.
But the way this is worded, as it's written, would this be better than, you know, what was released in regards to that ability, you think?
Yeah, I think so, just because the one is a huge drawback on that, the newer ability.
Okay.
But also, I find this interesting, because I didn't think of this when I first saw this one. The best thing to do with this is to try to hit at least 2 ships per turn. Because then you could hit, you know, if you hit 3 ships, you'd take out 6 masts. But if you hit 1 ship 3 times,
you could do that.
Take out 4 masts.
Yeah.
So the more targets
ram
you
into
shoot
ship,
at, the better it would be.
Like ram into ship A, and hopefully win the ram, therefore, which, you know, that's damage. There's another mast, 2 gone. And then hopefully there's like, you know, 3 other ships around you. So you shoot your first cannon at, you know, ship B. Hopefully it hits, 2 masts gone. Cannon number 3 hits, you know, ship C, another 2 masts. And then the last one shoots at ship D, and another 1 gone.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, wow.
7 masts total. Yeah.
That's clearly not what they intended, and that's probably why.
That's probably why they decided to die rolling later on when they did that.
Yeah, I think this has a lot of potential.
It's much more fun.
This has a lot of potential as like a last blaze of glory ship to kind of send it into like an enemy squadron and like decimate them before you get sunk. Or also,
it's like the Leroy Jenkins ship right here, man. It's like Leroy Jenkins. Let's just go.
in campaign games, this would be awesome too because there's a lot of crowded battlefield. So there you'd have a ton of targets. So in bigger games, this could be a really good gunship for the Spanish. I'm kind of glad they changed it though, because this ability is more abusable, sort of, than the Asesino. And I think about copying it to a 10 master could be pretty interesting as well.
Boy!
Because then you'd have a lot more targets to, you know, either more cannons to shoot and more area to cover. So
and more area because this, as a 3 master, it's a mid-sized ship, so it's not as large as the Fibers.
Yeah. This would be a rare
but
ship
the lines
where,
of fire is still kind of limited.
Yeah, this would be a rare ship where Master Gunner Rogelio Vasquez, to make all the gun ranges L, would actually be decent. Then you could reach out and try to hit extra ships for the extra damage. So it's better on bigger, you know, more cannons, but still, it'd be decent. So with him,
you know what I would copy this ability on?
What?
Okay, which which cursed submarine was more expensive? Was it the Pyre or the Locker?
Yeah, Pyre.
Probably.
Okay.
Really,
Did
the
the Pyre have SS move or was it SL?
I think the Pyre has S+S base move.
Okay.
No, it's just L.
Wait,
really?
okay. Wait, was the Locker? Yeah, Locker was just L.
Yeah.
Okay, but the I think the Pyre or the Locker doesn't really matter. I would put Davy Jones on, copy this ability, and then put on a Helmsman and make it a ram sub that can knock out 2 in one.
Wow.
2 in a single turn.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Nice.
Yeah, wouldn't be very
Copy
fast, but it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh,
All
actually, no. Behemoth. If Behemoth got his hands on this,
Yeah.
the sea monster.
That too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've always thought of Behemoth as more of a novelty than anything. I really like it, but it's still at the end of the day a sea monster that can't repair.
Okay,
For
fair.
all of its positives, it still carries that gigantic negative.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was also the only ship ever released to have the limit keyword. Fun fact.
Oh, nifty.
I don't know if that's going to change further down in the list, but
Well, here, maybe we add limit to, the Cordwainer or something.
Yeah.
As a retroactive, fix. It's like, can't abuse this.
or Maldición, because this would be abusable.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, the way it's written.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the way it's written is the way it's going to stay forever.
Yep.
Unless we use it in Vassal or something, like a special scenario game or something.
Nah, just do it anyway.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. All right, so who has the next one up? Is that me or?
I
Got
think
Mason.
that's... Okay.
Yeah.
La Bella Fortuna is unfortunately not a very interesting ship. You're looking at a 3-point... maybe. A 3.2 master. Actually, yeah, okay. I can see another thing you can do is La Bella Fortuna, a Spanish common, 3.2 master, 2 cargo, base move of S+L. Guns are both 3S. Ability is when the ship is at full cargo capacity. Her move is S. I say forget using cargo. Use this as... This is basically just an earlier version of El Algeciras, but with slightly poorer armament.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good little gunship. Great float tug.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Captain.
This is
Of course, you want to be really, really
Algeciras.
cheap. The 2-point Zuan.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another great little gunship for the Spanish. Yeah, it's extremely similar to the other one.
Yeah.
Almost
Or
like
just
clone.
flotilla tug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I said. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Spanish did get two. They did get 2 flotillas, so in theory, this plus the Algeciras plus those 2 tug.
Yeah. Nice. Good idea for a fleet challenge now.
Right, fleet challenge. Use unreleased pieces.
Yeah, exactly. I want to do it.
Right.
You might get even less turnout than whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, okay. My turn now for okay. Oh my indeed. All right, final piece from Spanish Main here. The Spanish would have gotten a fort. Puerto Blanco. I guess they just reused the name and changed the ability.
Yep.
Okay, for 11 gold, you get 2 5L cannons. Well, that sounds underwhelming, but here's the ability. When your ship docks at an island, on the next turn, place this fort. Probably should read it now, acts as a second home port. So, I'm taking that to mean this thing, when you put it down, it would essentially mean you now have 2 home islands where ships could not be shot at.
Yeah.
Holy moly, why does this not have limit?
Yeah. Well, they didn't have limit, so...
Okay, that could be why. Okay, that explains, in comparison to, the other 2 forts that would have been released in the set, 5 gold, 2 gold, 11. This is, more than the other 2 combined, and for good reason.
Yeah,
In fact, if this had been released, I think this would have been probably the most expensive fort.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, the most is, 5, I think, so, yeah.
And especially since
Crazy.
I don't see... Okay, since it's a fort, would it still follow the fort rules, meaning you'd have to have 11 gold on your home island already?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading this is that you can just dock, explore the island, and then plop down the fort out of nowhere.
I know, that's...
Without having to pay the 11 gold.
Yeah, no, that's why it's so crazy, and that's why they must have, nixed it. It's totally overpowered. I would say you definitely, in like the pirate code, it would definitely have to have the gold.
Oh
That
yeah.
would just be ridiculous, because then you're not even building anything. Like, it just magically appears for no good reason. So, yeah.
You know what I really wonder about this?
What?
How is home island rating affected by this? Do the two islands considered home ports have the same gold pool? Could you raid the original home island's gold pool by docking at this?
Oh, that'd be bizarre.
That would be weird.
That'd be crazy. I think it would probably be the same island, but then it would get weird because you could take gold out of Puerto Blanco used to build it. So then it'd be like, I think there's already a pirate code ruling that says the fort still stays in regards to wine and whatnot. But yeah, it gets weird in a hurry with this, and it's good that this never showed up. This would be really overpowered in campaign games too. That would be insane.
Oh yeah.
Then you'd have a second launch point without hardly doing anything. The big downside is the armament is pathetic, but also it's extremely weak. So 3 hits and you take it out. And then that would be interesting, because then you could have home island gold that all of a sudden is like a wild island again. That would be interesting.
Oh yeah.
I think this would be really fun to play test, even in small games. Like, it would be overpowered, but like between the cost and how easy it would be to destroy, I think it would be really fun. So this one is just insane.
Yeah.
And this one is actually one of the ones I included in the poll, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I didn't think this was a thing.
Yeah, so
because I figured it would have like some ability, like this one of the sports games can shoot again if it misses, or something bland like that.
Yeah.
This is completely different.
Yeah, so on the poll miniature trading, that has the most votes so far. This one is for the one that's false. This one got the most votes, which is understandable. It's more than twice.
I guess we were wrong.
Yeah, it's more than twice as expensive as the most expensive fort that does exist, and then 2 5L cannons. So that, without saying anything about the ability, it sounds completely preposterous. So
yeah. But then again, it also sounds like the kind of silly thing Wizkids would have done.
Yeah.
Like it's got no ability, but it's got the 2 5L cannons, but it costs 11 gold.
Oh,
because why not?
Yeah.
Or the idea for releasing a 20 master ship or something.
Yeah.
Looking at the stream here, Cazador says, since Puerto becomes a home island, Gold Island is still basically on your home island. Okay. And also, if the island would stay as a second home island after the fort had been destroyed,
that'd be interesting.
I assumed it would probably go back to being a wild island.
I agree, and I hope so. Yeah.
This would. I think you guys sort of mentioned it, but you didn't really chase down the path of what technically happens to the game's win condition.
Yeah, I thought about that
when the fort is destroyed, and this is taken out of the player's possessed gold pool.
Yep.
I'm not perfectly sure if this could, say, reverse a win, but I'd imagine in some niche situations you could win a game and then unwin the game somehow.
I don't know if that would work, because you'd still be playing to destroy it, but
yeah,
I think it would be really imperative to protect it, because if you should house rule it to put 11 gold in it, and then you would automatically get the rest of the gold on the island, goes into the fort. Yeah. But then, you want to protect that, because then it could be much more valuable than your home island a lot of times. It'd almost be like a switch. That'd be crazy. It could be like a fake out move. So imagine if you had an enemy with home island raiders approaching your home island, you had 11 gold, and you could you swing the gold to another island, and then just go. You could say, to hell with my original home island, I don't even need it anymore. I'm just going to go over here with 11 plus the wild island and just set up
blackjack and hookers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a smoke and mirrors effect. That'd be crazy.
That's actually a really interesting one. That would backfire if that could backfire really fast, but that would be a really interesting turn of a game.
Wow. Yeah, I can't wait. This is definitely one of the most interesting of all these like 40 plus. Definitely.
So now, Ben, the campaign game ramifications.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Is this just straight up banned, or
I would say it would be a combination of, again, like needing the gold once you dock. Like, it can't just magically appear. But then beyond that, I think it would fall under like launch points. So a lot of times we'll have like fort upgrades will be 50 gold. So in order to have this ability work immediately, I think you'd have to just build it at 61 gold or whatever you're using as the total. So or else it's too OP. So and then if you didn't make that house rule, this would be like the number one target, like automatically by like all players, and they would probably hate you. So it could, backfire. So
Well, that's through the Spanish.
yeah.
Oh man, I'm thinking, I would have loved to have this, for the summer game we just played, because I was playing as the Spanish.
Yep.
Oh well.
Boy. That'd be crazy.
Anyway, I think we're about to move on to Revolution's unreleased items, aren't we?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Completely skipping over Crimson Coast. Huh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there weren't any unreleased stuff from that. But part of that, and I could have mentioned this at the beginning, there's so many things to mention because it's just so overwhelming, the amount of stuff. But yeah, with the documents that Woelf sent to me or shared with me, a lot of them, I think Crimson Coast was one of the sets where only the final version of the spreadsheet, I believe, was shared. So like not all the sets even have like, draft versions. So we got lucky in the fact that Spanish Main had like a February 04 draft with all this crazy stuff in it. But Crimson Coast, I don't know if there were probably other drafts. Maybe there is unreleased stuff from Crimson Coast that will stay completely unknown forever. But anyway, so on to Revolution. We've got a Pirate 2-master. It's a blockade runner ship type. It's an uncommon ship called the Triton's Fury. It's 9 points, 2 masts, 5 cargo, L move. Cannons are 5S, 5S, and this ship cannot sink. It can be scuttled, which we only saw once in the regular game with La République from Barbary Coast, a Spanish blockade runner. Or French, I should say.
I thought it was French.
Yeah, French, sorry. Yeah, I'm getting the names mixed up.
It's all right.
But yeah, so this one I find really interesting as like a defensive slow gold runner because the guns aren't good enough to be a hybrid. So I would put a helmsman, maybe an explorer of some kind or whatever, and then just send it out and you just be invincible and just run gold at your own leash.
And oarsman would be key for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
To prevent it from being captured.
Yep.
I'd say helmsman, oarsman is what you'd want. Yeah. Although I wonder how else this can be. Okay. Oh, no. All right. So you couldn't really copy this ability turn by turn with, say, Davy Jones or Behemoth because they technically have to re-pick each turn.
Yeah.
So this doesn't really have any... You could choose
this every single time.
Well, I
don't think the copying ability, I think it resets at the beginning of your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it would work on ships, but it wouldn't work on Behemoth.
Well,
I think it could.
That'd be that sounds like a headache.
Well, it couldn't because let's say you pick this ability, you get all the segments shot off. Technically you have to register the segment less.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so sea monsters are eliminated, not sunk. Okay, so this would be like one of those abilities that Behemoth couldn't benefit from, but whatever ship Jones is on would. And correct me if I'm wrong, but how expensive is La République?
7.
The ship that. 7. Okay. So this.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd be much better off going with République at 2 points cheaper than this.
Yeah, for copying.
Although this, because it's pirate, you could get some wonky crew setups on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this, I think, has much more cargo.
Yeah,
than the République is which has
2 cargo for S move and then 2 S cannons, so it's much better a little gunship like Dreadnought, tiny Dreadnought. But this one is really interesting as a gold runner, I think. So.
Okay, question.
Because I'm looking at that 5 cargo space and I'm thinking, all right, time to bring on Jonah. Let's have fun.
Okay, question here. How does explosives work? What specifically does the text say? Because could you use explosives and or Nemo's plans with this?
Yeah, let's go see. I'm going to go to the Revolution tab here in the Master Spreadsheet and then scroll down to the UTs. So we'll see what it says here. Sometimes the spreadsheet's a little slow just because there's so many tabs because I did the unlimited versions and all that to be as comprehensive as possible. Explosive says, load the destroyer face down, kill it. When the ship rams or pins a ship, roll a d6 on a result of 4 to 6. Both ships sink. So it should work. Remove explosives from the game.
So in theory, Triton's Fury, if you had Nemo's plans and explosives, you could infinitely ram and blow up other ships. You could sink them, but you could not be sunk.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, you would have.
That sounds like the closest thing to a nuke you get in Pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is explosives loaded face down or face up?
Yeah, it said face down. Yep.
Face down. Okay, so it would take up space then. So you would need, I think, an oarsman, a helmsman. Would you need
cat, some kind of sim action twice?
Yeah, get this.
Yeah, sat. Wait, is Nemo's plans loaded face up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, I'll make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that gives you 4 spaces. I would say oarsman, calico cat, helmsman, and shipwright. Oh yeah, because you'd want to repair your masts so you can have your output back.
Yeah.
A reroller would be ideal,
in
but
a hurry,
the
you could
pirates
just
don't.
use the sim action to repair one or something, and then move or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like how after the explosives you wouldn't be pinned. So then if you had like same action twice or whatever, you could shoot a ship and sink another on the same turn. And Nemo's
Or even go back and try to do it on the same ship.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, that's
if
evil.
You failed, it's like, well.
Yeah, Nemo's plans is loaded face up. So yep.
Yeah, so in theory, Triton's Fury can actually be gamed, even though it's... Wait, does La Republic have almost the exact same text?
Exact same
pretty much. Yeah.
So La Republic could be turned into a slightly less effective version of this, maybe, or is its cargo inadequate?
The cargo on, I think, Republic is extraordinarily inadequate.
Yeah, but it's
some kind of like custom crew combo who's like captain, sim action, and reroll or something silly like that.
Yeah, you could still fit.
You'd have to be really slow, so it's only SB and then only 2 cargo, so you'd have like the UT and a helmsman, oarsman, or both.
Yeah, helmsman, oarsman. I did also realize that if you could, I think, work Runes of Thor, I think it was, into this, you wouldn't even need to roll.
Yeah, good point.
You could just every single time instantly ram and sink a ship.
Yeah, and I think if you had Runes of Thor on this same ship, there would be enough cargo to make that work.
Yeah.
Because Calico, the helmsman, those take up 2. The face down UTs take up another 2. The oarsman doesn't, and Nemo's plans doesn't.
Nice.
And you're still, I think, well under the point limit. Oh my.
Wow. Yeah, that is insane.
I'm looking at the next one up. Have fun with this.
Triton's Fury, I'm really surprised that the most game-breaking thing we've looked at so far, and it's...
Really, not the fort right above it?
It's a 2-master with 5S guns.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
you're not shooting with them.
Yeah.
Well, then the Banshee's Cry breaks the game, and it's got a 5S cannon.
Yeah.
True. Although I'd say Porto Blanco is limited because it's only got 2 guns, and you can destroy it pretty easily.
I think
but it's a second home island.
Yeah. The Cordwainer is wicked good too, so let's not forget her.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
English.
Yeah, but the Cordwainer could be destroyed by the Triton's Fury with explosives, Nemo's plans.
I know, but you're not going to get that. That's so hard to put together that combo. That's the thing.
I don't care. I like the idea.
You'd have to be very specific about how you set things up.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I mostly think that Fury is like a defensive gold runner, but I'm glad you guys brought that up because that is a really insane combo. Nice.
All right, let's see. I think the next one is mine to start, isn't it?
Yep.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. We're looking at another pirate piece here from Revolution. This is a common fort. Smuggler's End, 3 gold. Its guns are 3S, 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 4L, 4L. The ability reads, roll a d6 when this fort is attacked. The result is the amount of musketeers with 3S attack rating that help defend the fort for this attack. You must defeat all of the musketeers before you destroy any cannons. Musketeers that are not defeated leave after combat. Okay,
how
so
the
this
heck would you get rid of the musketeers? Would you shoot them?
This is dang, what's the name of that French fort?
The Paradis.
Paradis de la Mer.
Okay, so real quick, so basically the ability name from Wizkids says local populace, and in the same spreadsheet, Paradis originally had this ability before it was changed. So.
Okay, so this was the prototype Paradis de la Mer.
Yeah. Well, the original Paradis was also in the set, but the Pirates would have gotten a similar fort. Yep.
Although this doesn't really make any sense to me because, okay, when this is attacked, as in, I'm assuming, when it's shot at.
Yeah.
But it says musketeers then that are not defeated leave after combat. They never really outlined.
They went to go drink rum.
Well, hold on. Wizkids never really, outlined the scenario that is combat in the rules. So technically, the musketeers would probably disappear after the shoot action is done.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
So this this effectively is Parody de la Mer, but a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's really confusing. I don't know. I don't really understand the point
It's not fully thought out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see the point of having the musketeers be armed with these 3S, the regular cannons they have if they're not going to be able to shoot back anyway. So there'd have to be a pirate code ruling on either shooting back or whether or not the musketeers leave after every shoot action, so then it would reset during the turn or at the end of, your opponent's turns before it becomes your turn. So
I think the idea they had was that it was supposed to be that you could actually use the musketeers as part of the engagement, but then they probably realized that they'd have to add a ton of really strange stuff to the rule book in order to make this work, and I'm guessing that's why it was scrapped.
Yep.
And the fact that it's cheaper than Parody de la Mer and even more broken.
Yeah. Or that's just why they changed the ability to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
what it became later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing is just too much of a mess to ever release.
Yeah.
Although this does imply, the thought of they were maybe thinking about return fire.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, that'd be.
Or they, would have had it the game would have been much, much more segmented, where it's some kind of a combat action where you got to use captains and cannons and stuff.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, somebody did
it. They did that for the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
It was a combat action. But the Star Wars game has tons of issues with it, mostly based on the abilities of the miniatures.
Yeah, somebody released a simultaneous turns alternative rule set on Board Game Geek that does that. Like, everybody takes their move actions and then they take shoot or whatever, stuff like that. So, yeah. It's an interesting house rule, but it changes a ton of stuff, so. I think it's really interesting, though. It would be fun to playtest this with different house rules on when the musketeers leave or whether they can shoot back and stuff, but probably have to double the cost at least. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, another really interesting game piece. This is 3 in a row or even 4 that are pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, just really 3 because 4 would have implied the Bella Fortuna was interesting.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, almost like a reverse clone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Next up.
Okay, we have an English uncommon ship, HMS Cascade, a blockade runner type thing. 12 points, 2 masts, 4 cargo, I believe, base move L, 2L, 2S, and this ship eliminates 2 masts with 1 hit. So, nothing completely new.
Didn't we see something like this in Frozen North?
I don't know about Frozen North exactly.
Yeah, a bunch of factions have 2 masters with this ability. USS Superior only has 1 cargo, so it's far inferior. Yeah, I've seen similar things. Yeah. Oh, that was accidental. That was pun unintended, actually. For real, though. Nice. Yeah, this one is solid. It's a lot to pay for 2 masts, but, between the cargo, cannons, and ability, it's one of the better support gunships. It packs a lot of punch, but obviously pretty pricey.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, this is by the time they were drafting this, HMS London was already in packs.
I mean, you also had the Leicester, too, with, albeit worse cannons, but much bigger. And
the London is 1 point cheaper, 2 masts larger, faster, and has more guns. So it's effectively got the same firepower, a lower cost, and a faster move, and more durability.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the reason why this wasn't released is because they realized, wait, this is not good.
Yeah, too bad they didn't realize that for sets after
Yeah.
Davy Jones' Curse. They totally forgot about that for Fire and Steel.
Yeah. No, wait, what if Fire and Steel was just them going, what was left over that looks vaguely usable from past sets?
Probably.
Fire and Steel was just...
That sounds about right.
Fire and Steel is where all the bad ideas went.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, we've got these really cool-looking ships. We've got a flamethrower and these little blade things that come out of the side. What else can we do? I know, let's go see. Is there anything we didn't use for review things? Brilliant!
I know, I wish they had done Triton's Fury instead of, the Antimasia.
Antimasia.
Yeah.
All right.
Or hey,
So
maybe let's bring back the forts.
yeah.
There's only like 7 of them in the entire game.
Yeah, and
Let's bring
Yeah.
back the forts.
I know
I think
that's
they're
one of the.
more unreleased than released.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I
yeah.
don't know. I can't remember.
Well, just looking at this list, there's like
Yeah. Well,
like
that's the thing. Yeah.
7 of them or something.
Yeah, it gets more intense because basically, I don't know if I said this on the forum, but all the factions got an extra fort in Revolution. So instead of every faction getting 1, they were all going to get 2, which I would have loved. But oh well.
Oh yeah.
But now we can play with them, so yay. All right, so speaking of forts, the next one is an English common fort from Revolution. This one is Port George, 2 gold. It has 5 cannons, all of them are 4S, and you may give this fort a repair action. It may only repair 1 cannon per turn. So that's cool. That's a house rule I've done with if you put a shipwright inside a fort in like a campaign game, you can repair a flag or, whatever you want to call it. So I'd say this one is interesting. It's kind of weak. It's not very offensive. It's a very defensive fort because it'll last a while, especially with the repairing, and it's only 2 gold. So it's a good place to stash your gold, but it's not going to be. It's not like the other English forts like Ramsgate and Fort Brompton, where they're much more offensively oriented. But for the 2 gold, this is still a pretty good fort, I think.
Yeah, I guess it'll last a while. I thought of you were talking about putting a shipwright in a fort. I thought of something similar. Like fort exclusive crew that could be like 1 point and effectively do the same thing as this, but
yeah. I think I've done that with a few customs lately. Yeah.
Yeah, although to me the problem is this is a lot of inaccurate short range guns. It would be sort of a roadblock, speed bump, but not much more.
Yeah, speed bump. Yeah, because ships can easily park outside range and just hit it without range cannons.
Yeah, just blink away at it.
Yeah.
Or forts cannot hit with an S or all that.
Yeah, or bring one of those extended range snipers like the El Neptuno, or just an extended range ship up the front.
Yeah.
Like the flotilla.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool, and I think it's interesting that it's like kind of the opposite of the other English forts. But for the very cheap costs, we've already seen 2 forts that cost only 2 gold, which is super cheap and kind of crazy on its own. I think that's almost overpowered by itself, just the cost, because we've seen High Peng Fort Frenzy dominate in some competitive games where if you lock up a lot of gold in forts and your opponent doesn't have enough firepower to take them out, you can just kind of outlast them and just win based on building forts. So
I mean, along that train of thought, imagine if you found a way to get Porto Blanco into the Fort Frenzy. Look, I've got a second home island.
Yeah, I think 2 gold forts are kind of a risky proposition. I think that gets too low. I think 3 could be a solid minimum. But anyway. In that case, you could bump all the guns to 4L and make it more interesting as well.
Yeah, you could.
All right.
Next up is it's my turn now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's another fort.
Yay.
Another fort, this one being Spanish. This is Ile de los Changos, which translates as Isle of the Monkeys. Now, this fort has... Well, all right, so I'm having spreadsheet troubles. It costs 3 gold. It has a trio of 4S guns and a trio of 4L guns. This fort gets +1 to its cannon rolls when a ship is docked at it. This reminds me of 2 other forts, but I can't quite place which ones.
Thompson's Island.
Yeah.
It was like, this more or less exactly.
Yeah, although Thompson's Island, I think, has 5 guns, so not 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thompson's Island is smaller and more expensive. But it's got, pretty much this ability. And I don't think there's another fort that has this ability. I could be wrong, though.
I think it's Fort Brompton has the same one, basically.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Yeah, it's cool. I would definitely want to station something here. I think La Vagabundo would be a good option, actually, because then you can't... That one could provide extra firepower.
And this is Spanish, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah. Because then you'd have a total of 9 cannons in the same area, all firing at least rank 3, if not slightly better for a few. So
you know what else I would want to do?
What?
It's actually a pretty good fort.
I would want to get El Neptuno with the version of Bianco's Haulers that disallow shooting at something while docked, and then dock that here. And then you'd have a total of 8 4L guns, some of them with the option to double range.
Yeah, that's a good
Plus
one,
the 4S guns.
Nice.
Not very accurate, but I mean, when you're making that many die rolls, you're bound to get a couple 5s and 6s.
I
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. One thing about that I find really interesting, I haven't done it a lot yet, but with the Neptuno, you could move away and redock on the same turn to get better positioning, and also allow the fort to
Yeah.
have better ranges or better, lines of fire or whatever. And then, the Monkey Island would have 3L essentially, as long as you kept the Neptuno dock there. So.
Oh, wait a minute. You know what this might be a reference to? Wasn't there a point and click game, Secret of Monkey Island?
I don't remember that.
Something like that.
I think Woelf knows about some Monkey Island board game, but I don't remember what it's called.
Wait, no, I gotta look this up because I swear this is a reference to something.
Yeah, Woelf said
Could be a foreshadowing of the sea monkey from Davy Jones' Curse. Who became monkeys?
Yeah, no, Monkey Island was a series of point and click adventure games that they were made by LucasArts in 1990. Strange.
Oh, huh.
Anyway, yeah, so this seems to me like a reference.
Nice. Yeah, Woelf actually said there's another ship later on that's a reference, but anyway, we'll see that later.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right, so
you're next.
I get the more difficult to pronounce one, perhaps. All right, third fort in a row here now. We got the French one, common. Port à Louis, I believe is way to say it. For 3 gold, you get 2 2S cannons and 3 3L cannons. Once per turn, one of this fort's cannons may shoot again if it misses. So, built-in cannoneer kind of thing. I mean, I think this showed up on another fort. I'm trying to remember which one. I think it was a Spanish one from... Yeah, that.
This one's pretty interesting.
I think it's really good.
I think it's cheaper. Maybe.
This one's pretty...
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's the same cannons as the Devil's Maw, I believe, and it's got a great, it's got a nice ability with the L cannons especially. So for just 3 gold, I think this is a great deal for the French.
Yeah, I think it's pretty decent.
Yeah, nice.
It's not going to sway you over, say, Perdue de la Mer.
Yeah,
but it's still very viable on its own.
And it's better than St. Pierre.
This is like a very gold-friendly fort piece you could use if you were looking to save points or something, or save gold. Didn't want to put too much out there at risk on an island.
Yeah.
This is something you could do because these 3 right here in general, they're all decently large for a fort, and they're all pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So you could probably build these depending upon how you divvied out actions and whatnot. If you got lucky and had quick ships, you could probably build all of these within the first turn of a game because of how cheap they are. High-paying Fort Frenzy.
Yeah, well, that'd be tough with the teleporting gold, but yeah, maybe.
Well, perhaps, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll move on to the next one, which is an American ship. This is also from Revolution, uncommon ship, and it's the Freedom. So you may recognize the name. It's a ship that actually was released in Revolution, and like my note says, this was before a complete redesign and swapping names to become the Yankee. So this is like the original Freedom before it became the other ship, and you'll recognize the speed and the cannons are the same as the Yankee. But anyway, so the original Freedom before it became the Yankee is 14 points, 4 masts, 6 cargo, SS move, cannons are 4L, 4L, 4S, 4S, and schooner ability. And this ship ignores the first hit she takes each turn as long as she has all of her masts. So this one, I wish they kept this as the Yankee. I know, it's great.
Yeah, this is way more interesting than the Yankee as it was released.
Yeah, the Yankee is 2 points cheaper with a worse ability and 4 cargo and is a really boring ship in my opinion. This one is a fantastic gold runner for the Americans. Defensive ability, 6 cargo, great speed, at least for a gold runner, a large one. So this is probably better. Well, it's definitely better than the Yankee. You could make a case at least that it's better than the Freedom, which is a pretty solid ship in her own right. So this one is great, and I wish they had kept it.
I'd even say this is hypothetically. I'd even say this is hypothetically hybrid territory. I don't like 4 rank guns, but if you do find a cannon booster of some kind, you could, in theory, use this as a hybrid.
Yeah, good.
It's a tough ship.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a super upgrade of the Carolina. It's like similar, kind of twice the cost, but you get more cargo, same speed, and then you got a decent ability. So anyway,
Yeah, I agree with Cazador here. This would probably be one of the best gold winners for the U.S. in the game. So now, this came out in Revolution, and if it had not been redesigned, comparing this to the Louisiana, which was also from the same set, the Louisiana is a point more, I think, but trades
cheaper.
S plus L speed.
No, she's 13.
Really? The Louisiana's cheaper?
Yeah, 13 points, 5 cargo, SS move. Better cannons, though. Better hybrid, but not as good for running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So which would be the better, ship then? This or the Louisiana?
That's tough. It reminds me of the Pulpo versus the Dover, because I think the Louisiana would be a better hybrid and especially gunship, but the Freedom would be great as a gold runner. So it's tough. I think this Freedom would be more valuable overall because they don't have many great gold runners. So yeah.
I know I value my freedom.
All right, Batman.
You know how I'm going to defend my freedom?
By
sticking military installations in foreign countries, like Fort St. Philip. Which is an American common fort that was never released. It would have cost 4 gold, and its guns would have been a trio of 3S and then a trio of 3L guns. A ship docked here may use its action to look at one face-down cargo on each island. On each island.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Porto Blanco's eventual ability that she got.
Yeah. Well, this is a better version of Porto Blanco because it's not tiny and it's really well armed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
This one is another great fort, once again. Very good one.
Kind of OP, though, because you do get to basically look at the entire board in a matter of turns.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted
to. You have to give up an action for a ship, but...
Yeah.
I guess, depending on, you get, some cheap throwaway ship.
Like a bad ship.
Yeah, the Americans don't have many of those, so it'd be tough to use the ability much in,
I don't know.
games.
I think the Americans have plenty of mediocre ships.
It's something to use the superior for.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to use that anyway, so... I'm talking smaller games. You're not going to have a lot of time or points to do that.
Yeah. I'm just talking
big games. Maybe you combo this with, their set of canoes. So, one canoe stays here and doesn't do anything, and then the rest go off and do their thing.
I don't know if that would work, because you're supposed to give the same action to all the canoes. So
okay then.
I don't know. You'd have to check with Woelf if you can, declare a move action and just not move. So
could you put all the canoes there and then use their collective action or actions for the turn to look at every piece of gold in the game?
Well, up to 5 maybe. That could work. That could be really
because in a standard game there's only 3 or 4 coins on an island.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's a great one. Nice.
Interesting.
Maybe it's for the better that this wasn't released.
Yeah. I'll have to start writing down these crazy combos.
Yeah. Better if it wasn't released, and the reverse power creep came in.
Yeah. Maybe we can, as part of this episode and the discussion beyond it, of course, should be great. We could prod Woelf to include some of this in the next Pirate Code, try to accelerate that.
Perhaps.
I don't think that's going to be released until the late 2020s or something. So,
you never know.
Yeah.
Late 2040.
That's the other thing. I'm just looking at these, too. There's, a whole bunch right here, a string of, 6 flagged forts. Yeah. Which, among forts that were released in the game, not many of them, I think, had 6 flags. There were some that had 5 and plenty that had 4 or less.
Yeah. I think
they're all amusement parks.
I think it's just... yeah. Nice.
Oh, good grief.
We like the party. We like shoot actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you realize that Dorada's the only one with 6, maybe.
I thought it was Perry D that was the only one with 6.
No, it's got 5.
Oh, okay.
Well, has 6 total. I think it's the only one with 6, but
yeah. So that's right here. That's another 2 forts that have 6 flags. So that's sizable forts. Considering that in Revolution you didn't have 6-masted ships or 10-masted ships yet. So in theory, these forts, without an extra action, could survive a full assault from a 5-masted ship and still have, a cannon left over so that they wouldn't be instantly one-shot.
I think that might have been the idea.
To get a gunship over there to, try and, salvage the situation a little bit.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I think that was their idea.
cool.
Well, if they had been larger, I think it would make forts, in general, more useful perhaps in gameplay.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact of how quickly you could build them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so do I have our next ball of fun?
Yep.
Alrighty. So Revolution saw the introduction of events, and then they carried over into South China Seas, and that's what we have now. We've got an event from South China Seas. It is Mutiny! Alright, so for 5 gold, you get reveal this event at the beginning of one of your turns and choose an enemy ship. Roll 1d6 for each crew on that ship. On a 6, remove that crew from the game. Okay. Remove Mutiny from the game. So, oh my, I just thought of something. Use this with, the ruins of Nemo's plans and, roll, 7 6s. Bye-bye!
Yeah, that'd be annoying.
Oh, yes. This sounds like,
an enemy flagship.
Yeah.
Only how does this interact with something like crew savers?
I think it says remove, so I think it would still work, which is kind of
Yeah,
ugly.
it doesn't say eliminate, you're right.
That's an ugly one. Huh.
Oh, yeah. So,
I will say,
then.
real quick, people seeing the spreadsheet sees the rarity as test, which is interesting. I think I only saw that on the South China Sea spreadsheet. The South China Sea spreadsheet is weird. One little tidbit is that I can't resist now. The junks, instead of being 6 masters, the biggest junks were going to be 4 masters, which is really weird to think about.
They should have done that because those would have looked cooler.
No, I don't think so.
Well, they did that to the Corsairs, and then they figured, well, we gotta do something slightly different.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I love the 6 master junks, but anyway, so the other thing,
I do.
Yeah, and
then
yeah. So just to finish what I was saying about the test rarities, Woelf has revealed the next event that I'll talk about in a second on the forums, and he may have already revealed Mutiny. So if this one or the next one jogs people's memories, these 2 events, Woelf has already talked about at least the second one. But anyway.
So I am now thinking about comboing this with mermaids.
Oh no.
Not in any Vassal games.
Yeah, I know, but
not against
so
me.
Here's my thinking. All right, if you play mermaids first, right? All right, and then the ship is frozen for the turn. So if that ship was, stuck out in open water, there's no way to get rid of the crew unless you have a ship touch it and then offload the crew onto that other ship. So you play mermaids. And then you play this on the very next turn. Then, now that you've frozen the ship, now you strip away, let's say, a good portion of the crew if you're lucky in the dice are in your favor. How badly broken would that be?
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of overkill because they're already stuck there anyway. So.
Yeah. So I was just wondering then. If you removed the crew then with this, would the turns go down that you were stuck with mermaids?
I don't think so. I don't know. Let me go. Oh, well, we got the master spreadsheet, so they're all right here. So let's go check.
I don't think they would, but it'd be interesting if you could use this as another workaround maybe for mermaids to get your ship going faster.
Nah, it says number of turns equal to the number of crew on her when mermaids was revealed, so it wouldn't go down.
This would just be an extremely dickish move to do to someone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
like, you're stuck, and now guess what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of overkill. I think
instant way to make sure no one ever plays Pirates with you again.
Yeah. This is a weird event because it seems really risky to spend 5 points on it, and then, you have to roll 6s, which is really hard, so you'd almost want to have to do it against, a 10 master or something like that. Or you could really plan things out and include, like you said, Thor with Nemo's plans, because then that would be the ultimate combo to try to win a game with that. Yeah. But it would still be really tough to pull off. I think having to roll 6s makes it too risky, but I'm kind of glad because we already have enough overpowered events as is, so I'm kind of glad it's that much better.
I mean, this is from South China Seas, where you had the introduction of the Tens and the treasure ship.
Yeah.
So as soon as that got introduced, you had people stacking it up and whatnot, trying to max it out with dozens and dozens of crew. So a sack-built Baochuan, using this against that, especially a Baochuan built for sack, but you've got at least 10 oarsmen on there. And the Jades have enough good named crew to where you could very easily come in under the point limit with all that stuff. So this would be a good way to stop that more or less dead in the water without using a cargo eliminator. Granted, this is much, much more risky. So this might be one of those events that, yeah, it's an event and we therefore hate it because it's an event, but it's a balanced event.
Yep. All right. Any other thoughts or no?
Not on
I'm looking at the
mutiny.
next one already.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been
All right,
waiting
so
for you to read the next
Yeah, the
one.
next one is a giant event in every sense of the word. So huge point cost, big thematic, and a huge ability text. I'll try to read. So this is one that Woelf has already revealed, I believe, in full on Miniature Trading and maybe other sites. So it's none other event from South China Seas, test rarity, which is fun to see. And that blue color is actually exactly the same color as appeared on the Wizkids spreadsheet. So I try to keep that the same. This is White Whale, 10 points. Limit. At the beginning of one of your turns, place White Whale any place on the play area, except on islands or terrain. Pick an opponent's ship. That ship must hunt the White Whale and cannot dock or attack any other ship. At the start of your turn, move White Whale S in any direction. White Whale is defeated if it takes a total of 3 hits by cannon or crew. They do not have to be in the same turn, so I guess that would be Marines. If the White Whale rams or is rammed, and remove 1 mast and 1 crew from the ship. If the White Whale destroys the ship, remove it from the game. No other ship can aid in destroying the White Whale. No ship can attack the obsessed ship while the whale is alive, almost like the Kraken stuff. If the whale is destroyed, the cargo hold is full of whale blubber, and when it docks it, that cargo is worth 10 gold. Oh my god.
There she blows!
Yeah. So it's interesting, it says when it docks, so it could be at a fort. It doesn't have to be your home island. So you could bring it to a fort to unload the blubber.
Combo this with Porto Blanco for a Spanish ship.
Yeah. This would be really interesting against a 10-master, especially a slow one, to try to delay it, and then you could try to put stuff in the way to try to take a 10-master out of action for like as long as possible. I do find it...
You know what I would do to this?
What?
I would use this on a Corzado.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great idea.
Although, I think I figured out why this was never released. It's way too complicated.
Yeah, that's what Woelf said.
Yeah, I mean, the gist is pretty easy to figure out if you have the vaguest idea of what Moby Dick is about.
Yeah.
But
how would you not? But
well, yeah, if you're playing this, you probably do. Yeah. But it's just too complicated, and frankly, just all that bit at the end about destroyed cargo hold full of whale blubber, full. Hold on, no matter how big.
Yeah, that's really weird.
And they say nothing about it being transferable between ships of any kind. Like,
how much
can it be taken through boarding or?
Yeah, that would need pirate code ruling on. How
much the old rule of thumb: if it doesn't say that it can't, then we assume that it can.
Yeah. I think this is really interesting with like L movers and mind control, because it says if the White Whale is rammed, remove 1 mast and 1 crew from the ship. Not like turtles at all. So you could slam ships into this and it would fight back and hurt them. So that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I do find it really interesting that it's an event with limit. That is weird, definitely. And it's tied with False Treasure for the most expensive event ever seen at 10 points. So, yeah, this one I find fascinating. I definitely want to try it out with a few house rules with the blubber.
Yeah, or like maybe a scenario or something.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Fleet scenario or something.
Yeah, there was something similar. Yeah, there was something similar to that where you had to hunt either the Guichuan, Baochuan, or Zeus in an old fleet challenge a while back. So anyway, yeah, it was a really cool fleet challenge actually. I think it was like 2010, right before I joined or something. But anyway.
Cazador is suggesting that if it was an event, you can rely on a UT for the treasure part of the rules. So it's like a double thing.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, a 2-part game piece. One part of it is an event, the other part of it's a UT.
Yeah, that'd be
that. If they'd done it that way, instead of putting it, all in one, if they'd split it up like that, maybe that could have made it, I guess, less complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Although from a collector's standpoint, that would be just, a nightmare, because it's the same thing but in 2 different places.
Yeah. Well, you could easily do one of the coins on the card or whatever. Or this just could be the event and then coin. I think it would have to be the whole card though, because like they wouldn't have enough room for the text if it was full of coins. So they would need the whole card.
Yeah, so it's like, you got, the little event token, which is the square thing, and then you've got right under that the UT.
Yeah.
And then, the line of text is everything over to the right, or whatever. Because we all know what the white whale looks like. It's a gigantic white sperm whale. Ta-da!
Yeah. I think it'd be fun to pair this with turtles and, like, surround the whale with turtles or something.
Yeah.
Speaking of whales, it sounds like Starship flows in the background or something.
Yeah. If you want to be, like, really mean, you could, like, assign a set of canoes to hunt the white whale and see how that goes.
Oh, that'd be weird. Wow. That'd be really
That's a way to, like, I think, stall native canoes, maybe.
Yeah.
Use this to, like, stall out the American native canoes.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because, the whale could effectively just, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Ooh, the high paying. That's another
great
one.
idea. Wow. That'd be weird. Yeah, maybe this is like weirdly a good counter to like a lot of like competitive fleets. They wouldn't be able to hit it 3 times. It'd be hard. That'd be wow. This has interesting ramifications.
Yeah, so you just have to build a good 30-point fleet, or a good 35-point fleet somewhere in there, to make room for the white whale. Interesting.
Wow.
Most interesting.
Yeah. Crazy.
All right, so Ben, maybe you and I will do some vassal games that involve the white whale or some shenanigans.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, I just realized something really ugly with like flat Earth in a huge map game, and without a lot of whirlpools, a ship could just sail and sail. You could take it out of action for so many turns. That'd sail all the way across the map. Oh my god, that could lead to all sorts
you could put the white whale anywhere on the play area.
So that could lead to all sorts of interesting like diplomacy situations where you try to like ally with the pirates to get Calypso involved so you could get to it faster. That'd be crazy. Oh my god.
Yeah, or like in a campaign game. This would be like the one event that's allowed in a campaign game.
Yeah, that'd be fun, honestly.
Yeah. Because the pirates sicked the white whale on, let's say, the English just for giggles. And they put the white whale way over in French territory.
Yep. And then
now the English, all right, let's go do this.
Yeah. And then the English finally get there, and then the crew start like out-moving their ships into the whale, so they don't have enough firepower to take it out. Oh my god.
Or by the time they get over to where like the white whale is supposed to be, the whale has moved S through a whirlpool and come out.
Oh my god.
Over here.
Oh my god.
Get me.
That'd be epic. Whale through the whirlpool.
Yeah.
I love these
possibilities. Like the whale event, just circle the whirlpool until the ship is almost within range, and then bye-bye.
Yeah, this is so fascinating, these possibilities. I love this.
I've been giving it some thought. I don't think you could use Lord Micron or any of those shepherding abilities to get plus out of the sea creatures, because I don't think this technically qualifies as a ship, let alone a sea creature.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because they talk about you can move it S in any direction, but they don't talk about giving it an action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought of something else after looking at Cazador here on the stream. If you played this in a game where you had more than one ocean, all right, like the multiple oceans, like Ocean A, Ocean B, like what happened in Command the Oceans.
Yeah.
All right. So if this got used in Command the Oceans, and let's say that, just to be mean, the pirates placed this and had an American ship be the subject of the hunt.
Yeah.
And they put it just outside the pirate kingdom. The Americans would have to go bonkers trying to go and find it.
Yeah. This is really interesting, too, as like a magnet effect to try to draw in an enemy to capture them. Because you could put the white whale near your home island and then surround it with your own ships. And then when the target ship gets closer, you could try to sabotage them and capture them. So that'd be interesting.
You can't, because they said you can't mess with obsessed ship, as they call it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You could, in theory, lose it. You could, in theory, choose to lose the whale there, but also then destroy that ship.
Yeah. Huh. That could be crazy this is where events become crazy overpowered, because favor the gods, kill the whale, and then all of a sudden the ship is ripe for the taking. the magnet ship. Because then it's right near your home island, then you kill the whale, all of a sudden it's fair game. Kind of like canceling the Kraken keyword. Oh my god. Yeah, events are so overpowered.
I
I'm just looking at this line of text now. I'm thinking that this probably wouldn't work well with canoes.
No.
Or at least it wouldn't be able to destroy the canoes, because if the whale destroys the ship, remove it from the game. So, in the cases, if you had the canoes target this, if the whale rammed one of the canoes and eliminated that canoe, would the whale then be eliminated, or would the whale have to eliminate all of the canoes?
I think I'd have to take them all out.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, just like, get rid of all but one of them, maybe.
Yeah, that is weird. And you'd have to determine whether or not all 5 canoes go after them, because each canoe is often treated as one ship. They have to be in the same package. They're still separate, technically. So, that's a weird one. Cool.
This one could almost get an entire episode of its own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. There could be, like, another segment on unreleased pieces, like the other episode we're planning, but, like, unreleased.
Yeah, we should probably do that sometime in the future.
Hey, maybe that's the next episode.
No, maybe. It's kind of soon after, and I've already thought about maybe doing, like, minor changes for the next episode, possibly. So.
Yeah.
Because there are some interesting ones. So, El Phantasma used to be a 1-point crew. So, anyway.
Wait,
just to whet your appetite.
Anyway, to skip on after White Whale, the next one, I guess we don't have any data between Davy Jones' Curse and then I think Frozen North, or was it? No, it was Ocean's Edge. Came after Frozen North.
Yeah, none of them. No, I didn't.
None of those. Nothing for those. There's one unreleased crew for Pirates of the Caribbean.
So this is basically almost the same. So I just wanted to include it. Yeah, it's really cool. So.
As Ben said, we're including it because it's an alt version of something that's released. It would have been a rare crew called Captain Teague, which was technically replaced by Damsel in Distress, which is a not particularly interesting 3-point crew with just the Parley ability.
Yeah. So Keith Richards was going to be in the game originally, in a way. So, so a lot of people guessed that on the poll, too. So, anyway. So if you thought hard about it, you would have thought about how, he was in Pirates of the Caribbean a little bit, and then, through that, you could find the Disney set, and then Captain Teague was going to be a crew. So I wish they had done that, but maybe with a different ability set. I'm not sure what, but and you could link to Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack. So.
This piece, I think there's not much more to say, although I do want to ask about all this stuff coming up. Mm-hmm. Was this originally part of, because we're again skipping several sets straight into Savage Shores / Return to Savage Shores. Yep. I did want to ask, was this stuff that was originally scheduled to be in one of the 2 sets, but it then fell out when the 2 were split?
Yeah, that seems to be the case. Yeah, it's confusing to look at some of the spreadsheets and documents. And the SS RTSS stuff, Savage Shores, Return to Savage Shores, it's in like PDFs, so it makes it even a little bit weirder. It's not in like spreadsheet form, but yeah, that seems to be the case. So almost like how Ocho Brazo fell out of Rise of the Fiends and stuff like that. So yeah, that's essentially what we're going to be looking at. So it's pretty weird. And the numbering gets weird too, of course, so as a result. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so originally Savage Shores was going to be a bigger set, more similar to Pirates of the Caribbean or Rise of the Fiends in terms of size, but then it got split in half and stuff was unreleased. So, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Savage Shores, we still have to do that set review, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I had to make sure I didn't miss that episode because it's been a while since we did a recording.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But yeah, since Captain Teague was not all that interesting, do you mind if I start on the next one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This next one was an American ship, Uncommon, that would have been part of Savage Shores or Return to Savage Shores, presumably when the 2 were joined and meant to be released as a full set. It's an uncommon American ship called the USS Loggerhead. 14
like the turtle!
Exactly. 14 points, 4 mass, 5 cargo, L move, 3L, 3S, 3S, 3L guns, and the ability, if a sea monster begins its move within L of the ship, it gets plus L to its base move. And actually, we get flavor text for this one.
Yay!
Which is, the crew of the USS Loggerhead were given the dubious task of locating reported beasts of the sea and herding them to where they can do the most damage to America's enemies. That's an interesting one. although I can't say it's a particularly good ship. It's not exceptionally well armed or fast for its cost. It does have a good cargo space.
Yeah, I like that cargo.
Not all that useful in ability, though. Yes, if you're doing a sea creature favoring fleet, well, specifically sea monster, because that's what the ability text says.
Yeah.
But as a whole, that's not a very good unit type, and I'm gonna say nah.
Yeah, I think this one's interesting because it's kind of like the reverse of the Pequod from Davy Jones' Curse. It's a 14.4 master. That one was like anti-sea monster. This one's like pro-sea monster. So it's interesting how the Americans have kind of switched on that. But yeah,
I guess PETA came into being by then.
Yeah,
or whatever it is.
I love the ability, especially on Serpent's Fang and on crew, but the Americans don't have hardly any sea monsters, so therefore the ability is a little iffy. The cargo and the cannons are pretty solid, so I could definitely see myself using this one, just not in competitive games or smaller games. So I like it, but it's a kind of a novelty for them.
Well, the Americans do have Champ and Hee,
which are both awful.
Terrible.
Yeah. Okay. In Return to Savage Shores, they would have gotten the Slippery Devil, which has that if it succeeds at a boarding party, also wins the master. So that one's already pretty quick. So that would be like the one you use the most.
Yeah.
With this, then probably.
Yeah.
That would be actually a pretty good combo, because then that monster would be flying out at S+S+L. Like, use it to strike against, like, those tiny 2-masted or 1-masted gold runners. Not bad, but not practical either.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think we're ready to start the next unit on the list, and I believe it's yours, Xerix.
All right. Uncommon ship for Savage Shores, Return to Savage Shores. El Viento Inferno. It's Spanish. Translates to the ill wind. Somebody farted. Look out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
All right, for 15 points, you get a 4-masted ship with 5 cargo. Base move L, 2S, 3L, 3L, 2S. This ship gets plus S to her base move if she has all of her masts. All right, and flavor text reads... Sent to hamper America's efforts at exploration, El Viento Inferno blows swiftly through the South Pacific, raining terror on any enemy ship she sees. Well, this reminds me of some of those other ships that have the plus X to base move with all the masts. I think the most famous example might be the Interceptor.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yep.
But this is kind of like, a downgraded or a slightly different version of the Cristobal, really, kind of.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
I mean, the guns are not completely brilliant.
No, they're pretty good.
Maybe.
No, they're good.
So this could be like, a decent hybrid ship for them.
Yeah.
Because as long as, it stays healthy, you're moving around at L+S pretty much all the time. You can toss on a helmsman, so now you've got L+S plus S.
Yeah.
Throw in trade currents and any other factor. This is moving around pretty quickly with a lot of cargo, more or less.
Yeah, I like this one as a neat hybrid. I think it's pretty good. Definitely.
Yeah, and then put on the Savage Shores version of Bianco's Haulers. Gets even better, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty well balanced, but it's really expensive for what you're getting as well.
Kind of, yeah. I like how the flavor text continues the anti-American or American versus Spanish war. Like
the Spanish-American war theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wonder if that's what they were going for with that part of the canon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with Savage Shores, you can see it with Stern and a bunch of the other Earth ships.
And you can see it beginning a little bit in Fire and Steel in the flavor implications.
Yeah, good point.
But Savage Shores and then Return to Savage Shores really harp on the building up of Spanish and American conflict.
Yep.
But something I wanted to say, this does seem like a pretty well balanced ship, but it is a bit expensive. I don't remember what its name is. There's a 4-masted Spanish schooner out there that has 6 cargo, L plus S move, and really good armament, and I think it's a point or two cheaper.
Yeah, Santa Isabel is overpowered. Yep.
Yeah, Santa Isabel is OP, but still, the point is, compare Santa Isabel to Viento Inferno, and doesn't compare favorably.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice to run both of them at the same time. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But unfortunately, Inferno was never released, so we can't do that.
Yeah.
Outside Basil.
Yeah. The next one, though, I definitely want a proxy. So this one is one of my favorites of all the unreleased stuff I've seen. This is an English. Yeah, this is an English Four Master Special Edition
How
ship.
will you
So
convince me of that?
it probably would have been a Special Edition box ship. This is also from the Savage Shores, Return to Savage Shores, number 087, which is interesting in terms of the numbering scheme. And so a four-masted English ship, HMS Howell, or Hull, and 11 points, 4 masts, 5 cargo, S+S move, cannons are 2S, 3L, 3L, 3S, and once per turn, the ship can look at 1 face-down treasure on any island. And the flavor text says, several years after the disappearance of Lord and Lady Alfred Howell at sea, their children commissioned creation of the HMS Howell with the stipulation that it search for their parents whenever able. So, Woelf said this is like a reference to Gilligan's Island, I think it was. But anyway, yeah. So some people will probably get that. But anyway, I think it's a great ship overall. It's kind of like it's a lot like HMS Dover. It's slightly better cannon at the bow, and then you get a nice little cheap 1-point ability. So it's kind of like HMS Dover, but like slight upgrade. But you know you might want to only get 10 points.
You know what it reminds me of?
What?
Raven's Neck. Less cargo.
Yeah, a little bit.
Less cargo, but a bit faster and slightly more poorly armed. Similar ability, similar cost.
Yeah.
This looks like it's joining that trifecta of really good 11-point ships for the English.
Yeah.
Up there with the London and the Halcyon.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you could probably run those 3 together. And it's like, okay, the London is the kind of in-betweener ship. The Halcyon, I think, is the dedicated gunship. Yeah. And here's your hybrid gold ship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this one's a very good multi-purpose ship. Definitely. I like her a lot. All right.
Let's see. I think...
Yeah, the Howell is most definitely better than the Viente dell'Inferno or Inferno.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm up next again. Yep. This one is the French SE box chip. It's called the Coeur de Diamant, or Heart of Diamond. This one's 12 points, 4 mass, of course, 3 cargo, L move, 3S, 3L, 3L, 3S. The ship ignores the first hit she takes each turn as long as she's all over mass. Flavor text reading, France would like her enemies to think the Coeur de Diamant is as tough as her namesake, but under her sustained barrage, she tends to show her cracks.
Sounds historically accurate.
Yeah, probably, like most ships. But nothing super exceptional. It seems like, actually, this seems like a super cookie cutter SE box chip, just a very plain formatter with a pretty decent ability. Not exceptionally interesting, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Why am I thinking of HMS Iron Forge?
You mean the HMS Forge?
Yeah.
Maybe because they're similar?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah.
I don't remember how their stats differ, if at all, but they are similar.
I think the Forge has a weird cannon breakdown where it's got like a 2S, a 2L, and then a 3L, 3S.
Yeah, is the Forge more expensive?
Yeah, it's 13 for 4 cargo. Yeah.
Okay. So it's effectively like significantly better.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
And I think, like the Coeur de Diamant here, I think the Forge is also like a box top ship.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, ROTF.
One of those pre-assembled guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This one's more
next for you, Xerix?
Yeah.
All right, on for me. All right, next up we have the Spanish pre-built ship, the Volare.
Volare.
Volare?
Right.
Yeah, like the that song by Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin? Volare.
Nice.
I don't know that too much, so. Translation here says that it means I will fly. So for 14 points, you get 4 masts, 4 cargo, base move of L, 3S, 4L, 4L, and 3S cannons. And if this ship has a crew with a captain keeper, she gets plus L to her base move.
That one's
Flavor
more
text
interesting.
read, Flavor text reads, the crew of the Volare may not be able to take to the air, but under a captain's expert direction, they fly across the water towards their enemies. This isn't really a gunship, or at least not a frontliner, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the cargo is low enough where I don't know if I would use this as a gold ship.
Yeah, it's a
Or
little funny.
hybrid. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah, I almost said when you talked about the Viento and Fermo being similar to the San Cristobal, I almost said something about this one coming up. So, the same ability. So, yeah.
Yeah, this one I think, compared this to that one, I think I'd rather have this one over the Viento.
Really? Okay. I'm not so sure, but
Well,
interesting.
if only because I think the max speed you could get on this is faster.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if the Viento had the regular, what more commonly seen, plus L, then maybe it might be a more fair matchup.
Yeah.
But because the Viento only gets plus S and the Volare gets plus L, which therefore means without, if you just put on, like, say, the tried and true Victor de Alva, you get a 4-master flying around, presumably without a helmsman, at 4L, which you get that extra action.
Yeah.
And then, you would be adding on helmsman and, other things like trade currents only make it faster.
Yeah.
I would probably do helmsman and sat.
Yeah.
But
I would do
still,
I would do Luis Zuan from Mysterious Islands to get World Hater and Captain. Then you get the plus L bonus, and then the cannons make it good enough to be a gunship. That's probably what I would want to do. With a helmsman,
I might go the other way.
Yeah,
I might go cheap. I might get the 2-point Zuan and have this just be like, like in a campaign game or a regular game, like a really quick scout ship that is capable of standing and fighting, but is better as going, oh, look, they're over there. Let's go back.
Yeah, I actually like that idea, because then with Zuan and a helmsman, that'd be 2 cargo left over for just 18 points. You'd have LLS. So I do like that, actually.
That's pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
I would really want to use this as something to chase down and destroy small gold runners, especially small cheap ones that your opponent thinks, they're not going to go after this low priority target.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cry. I'm the quickest one on the sea.
Yeah. You might still have
what?
You might have a little cargo for stealing gold then too, if you didn't want to tow them home. But this would be good for towing, definitely.
Yeah.
Derelicts anyway. But
yeah,
I do like this one. It's interesting. I think you could do interesting with like min-maxing, like 18 points, cheapest, and then you could like really make it super fast with SAT and everything. But anyway.
Yeah, this might be one of those like pre-assembled ships that's actually good.
Yeah, all three are pretty solid, but especially the English and Spanish so far. But anyway, speaking of which, let's check out the last one, which is the Pirate Special Edition box ship number 090, number 90 from the original Savage Shores set. Special Edition, it's a Pirate 4-master, Kissin' Mule. So, kind of a funny name. And I looked it up because I was curious as to where the name came from. This note was added by me, well, same with the other ones, but the translations were actually in the original Wizkids documents. But this one, I saw there's a Kissin' Mule castle. So, anyways, there's a link to that in the note. This is a Pirate 4-master, 12 points, 4 cargo, L move. Cannons are 3S, 2S, 2S, 3S. And one of the ship's treasures is worth plus 2 gold when unloaded at your home island. And the flavor text says, a man's home may be his castle, but for some pirates, a man's home is on the Kissin' Mule, rating for often more than an expected profit. That alludes to the real life inspiration of the castle and the ability. So it's okay. I think the ability is what makes it pretty solid, but as a hybrid, it's a little lacking on cargo, but that's where Hammersmith come into play. So I'd probably do Hammersmith and like either an explorer or coconut or oarsman, something like that, as a second crew to make it a decent ship overall. So I do find the name funny because I think of like Kiss a Mule, but anyway.
And then you talked about min-maxing with Hammersmith and some of the cheaper pirate crew. You could probably find a way to get Juntsman Jacquard on here.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be ideal, but you could do it. One of those like out there things you could do.
Yeah, I would probably Hammersmith Jacquard and maybe coconut.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, you'd end up with something pretty well rounded. Anyway, I think I'm ready to jump into the next piece and actually the next segment of the episode.
Yep.
All right.
Here we go.
The next piece on the list. Now, this is really interesting. We're now seeing a set of LEs from Savage Shores combined, which we sort of really wish had been released now because some of these are pretty interesting. The first one numbered 200, as Ellie's were, is called Le Flot de Marine, which in French means Mariner's Bane. This would have been an 11-point sea monster, one of the 5-segmented squid, 0 cargo, base move L. All of its segments would have been 3S. Ability, obviously the keyword, and then once per turn when the sea creature hits an enemy ship, also eliminate 1 crew from that ship. So this would have actually been a very good,
cheap,
simple kind of, way to wage war. I'll read the flavor text. When young, the beast Le Flot de Marine began following French ships and feeding off scraps of food thrown over the side. Now full grown, follow ships into battle, looking for tastier morsels to fall over the side. From the journal Pierre Aronnax.
Yay! He's back.
Yeah.
Well, in flavor text at least.
Well, we'll
Easy
see.
as survive.
No, more than flavor text, because he
Yeah, we'll
appears
see.
further down.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he
Well,
returned.
I guess we'll get there when we get there.
Yep.
Yep. Anyway, yeah, I like this one, because finally it's giving sea monsters a chance to be sort of a reasonably good expendable, way to get into combat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you'll still need to buff this up. I mean,
there's not a lot you can do.
I mean, couple it with those within L of this ship gets plus L to base move thing. And then like a crew like Seleucus or Micron to give it, that move and shoot again.
Yeah, trade currents too would help a little.
That's right, trade currents.
I think this is the first time this ability showed up on a sea creature, or at least sea monster. I think a dragon has it, but anyway, I know this was. I included this in the poll because an 11-point squid is pretty crazy. So I figured it might make people think this was one of the false options. So it is pretty weird, especially for the French. So it's really strange but interesting. So yeah.
And even though it's a squid and a sea monster, it's still 5 segments. So it's essentially like, a really bad 11.5 master.
Yeah, essentially. Nice.
But it's still much better than most of the sea creatures that were released.
Yep.
Well, that's true. If only marginally. The
still
point
better.
Cost, the point cost is really what helps it.
Yeah.
That's the point. They should have all been cheaper. Yeah. If you really wanted this one, could probably still come down in price, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this then maybe shows that Wizkids recognize the sea monster problem and was maybe trying to fix it.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Which is weird because the ones that made it into these 2 sets were sometimes horrendous and pretty, like Hei is horrible. Slippery Devil is really mediocre. Only like Namazu and the weird ones are actually better than what came before them. So yeah, it's kind of strange.
Namazu and Krolf. Well, then again, Savage Stories, you had Ophidius.
Yeah, exactly. So
Ophidius was really good.
But Ophidius versus Hei is like such a bizarre disparity. It's kind of shocking. But anyway.
Yeah, you're right. Probably designed by different people.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Got a lot of noise in the background. Some kind of party.
Yeah, it sounds like some kind of upset dog.
No, I think that's a very excited dog, if anything.
Oh, I see.
Oh, well.
Yeah, she's very excitable every time she sees anything out front.
Yeah.
All right, so
my brother's playing with her and riding her up.
All right, have we said all that can be said about the Fluidi Muddy?
Yeah. That's not like a dog
actually, coming up. I thought about saying to end this early because I wasn't sure if she'd freak out. Yeah.
All right. So then moving on now. We go to the next limited edition, the number 201, Spanish. We have the Sombra de la Nave, which translates roughly to... Huh?
Yep. Yeah, no problem.
Which translates roughly to Ship's Shadow. All right, we'll catch you later. Okay, so for 12 points, you get a 4-segmented Serpent, no cargo, base move L, cannons of 3L, 3S, 3S, and 3L. Sea Monster. If this Sea Monster is with an S of a friendly ship, it gets +1 to its cannon rolls. Huh. Interesting.
You'll see why here in the flavor.
Yeah. And then flavor text. Sombra de la Nave is often found beneath ships, enjoying in particular the shade provided by large vessels such as the vast treasure ships of Spain. The creature is said to demolish enemy ships attacking its source of shade. Oh, hey, man. All right. So, okay, that's a good flavor explanation for that ability.
Yeah.
But that's nifty.
Yeah.
Of a friendly ship. That would have been. So that would stack up, kind of like the Gariante or
wow.
other ships with that ability.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So
Usually
if you included this in a crowded American battle fleet, with what was it up here? The loggerhead.
Oh, I see.
All right, the loggerhead plus. Oh wait, no. Okay, it's just an American. This is Spanish. Duh.
Yeah, El Pescador would work on a ship.
Oh, okay, El Pescador.
That'd be fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Plus, some of those cheaper Spanish gunships.
Yeah.
You very quickly get a sea monster that one or two ships being within range buffs the cannons to essentially 2L, 2S, 2S, and 2L.
Yeah, you only
which is the best cannons you can get.
Yeah, you only need 2 ships with an S to get to rank 1. So yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
The drawback though to this is that she's slow.
Yeah, that's why El Pescador would be really important.
Yeah.
I think El Pescador
and trade currents and other things.
Yeah,
I do want to say.
Oh my God, this ship's a boat too. Sorry.
Does Spain have any cheerleader ships that would make good gold runners?
I don't think gold runners, no.
Dang.
Not gold runners, but they do have 1 or 2 cheerleaders.
Okay, because this is an ideal pairing for a cheerleader ship. You get instant rank 1.
Yeah, exactly.
And if there was one that was either a decent warship or really I'd say gold runner, because then this can play defensive for it, then this would be a good pairing with that. I like this one a bit.
Yeah, I do like it. I think it would be really crazy to do Volare with El Pescador, and then you could have a really fast, double strike force with, LL or better with both. Yeah, that could be pretty powerful.
Oh, nice.
At least in the short term. I know, I love optimizing sea monsters by using them, quickly, stacking up a lot of bonuses to kind of shock an opponent with the speed. But anyway, it costs a lot of points, but it's fun to pull off. So I do like this one quite a lot, and I like the flavor text, courtesy of our friend Pierre Arnax. He's doing his research, so that's nice.
Yeah. He's come back from mysterious islands.
Yeah, we'll see.
20,000 leagues under the sea. Huh.
Yeah.
I haven't read that in a while.
Yeah. All right, I guess I'll go to the next one, which is also from Savage Shores. Well, the rest of them are, of course, the original Savage Shores. This is a cursed limited edition ship, number 202, Apu Hau's Jewel. And in the Wizkids document, it said it's a Hawaiian storm god, Apu Hau, I guess. And this is an 11.3 master with 5 cargo, SS move. Cannons are 3S, 4L, 3S. And then it has the junk keyword, so it's a 3-masted junk. And when this ship hits another ship, you choose which mast is eliminated, which is okay. And then flavor text says, Apu Hau's Jewel often appears in the middle of terrible storms, unharmed by wind or wave, to attack ships trapped in the storm. It is rumored to be crewed by the spirits of drowned islanders. So decent flavor text there. And this one I find most interesting as either a cursed hybrid or even a gold runner of some sort. They don't have any
I was about to say, doth my eyes deceive me, or is this a cursed gold runner?
Yeah, good speed and great cargo. So yeah, it's a rarity in that case. So
starting with Rise of the Fiends, the curse got 2 or 3 decent gold options. I mean, Rise of the Fiends, you had the Grinder, which is possibly one of their best ships ever.
Yeah, it is.
Then later you had, in Return to Savage Shores, you had Squawk, and now you have this, which could have been in the same set.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid ship overall. It's not too bad as a hybrid between the rank 3 cannons and the ability. I mean, Captain plus Helmsman, then you'd have 3 spaces left over for gold, so not a bad option there either. So, I think in big games, I would definitely just go pure gold resources. So,
yeah.
Nice.
That's an interesting thing, Cazador pointed out. These are all limited edition cards that are more than one card. These were the tournament prizes, yeah?
I don't know. I don't think it said that in the WizKids spreadsheet.
Well, it says LE. They might have been tournament kits. They might have been promo items. They might have been... Well, they probably weren't mail-ins because there's something further down that looks more like a mail-in.
Yeah, because, the tournament things, a lot of the limited edition ships or some special edition ships, they're one card, one masters, or the blockade runners.
Yeah.
Things like turtle ships, one-masted galleys.
They started like that, but then they changed in Rise of the Fiends and Fire and Steel when they got really rare. So, or even more rare, I guess. So, yeah.
Most intriguing.
Yeah. All right. Nice ship there.
Yeah.
Run.
Next ship up.
All 3 LEs are good so far. Anyway.
Yeah.
So far. Ooh. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, kind of.
I think that... Wait, was the next one still yours, Ben, or...
No, I just did that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next one down is Sea Orchid. This is an American ship. This one is 11 points, 2 masts, 3 cargo, LS move, 2 4S guns, and this is a junk. Once per turn, you can reroll any die roll you make for this ship. Okay, I guess the first really mediocre LE ship we're looking at here. So I'll just read the flavor text, which is: the Sea Orchid's crew is partly made up of islanders curious to learn more about the Americans. The knowledge of the islanders has saved the ship and crew from many dangers. Aside from that, this is not all that good. This is, I mean, it's reasonably quick, but its armament isn't good. Its hold space is average. I mean, sure, the ability is flexible, but it doesn't really have many uses. This isn't a very good ship.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very similar to the Skipping Stone, the pirate catamaran, but the guns are worse, and it's not, it doesn't have that nice defensive ability. I think the speed and the cargo, mass, and points are the same, but it's inferior. So I know it strikes me as like a boring, empty gold runner for the Americans, maybe.
I did just think of one use. You could put, I think, Commodore Matthew Perry and a cargo master aboard, and then you would make up that space. Well, actually, you'd have 4 cargo, LS move, because Matthew Perry, I believe, if I'm thinking of the right crew, the Fleet Admiral, links to all American ships.
Oh, that's Preble.
Yeah.
Okay, Preble.
Perry is a 0+5er.
Okay. So I'm thinking Preble plus a cargo master, and you get something that can re-roll all the Fleet Admiral rolls while moving at L+S with 4 open cargo.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Nice. That's okay.
I'm not sure I'd put either of those crew on a ship this small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's only L+S, so you could catch it with something faster. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a solid use, though.
Yeah. All right, next up.
Oh, that's me.
Yes, that is.
Almost forgot. All right, next up we have the Spanish one, number 204. The Brazos de Dios. Brazos del Dios. Translates roughly to God's Arms.
Which is funny.
So for 18 points, you get 3 masts, 6 cargo, base move L, 3 3S cannons, and this is a hoist and secret hold. Huh, interesting. All right, flavor text reads: Brazos del Dios was constructed by the Spanish as a way to take on cargo from islands where docking ships would put them in danger. Interesting. This is probably the best hoist you could use as a hybrid. 3S cannons are, not brilliant for gunships, but you throw on, a captain and a helmsman, and then, let's say Dominic Freda.
Yeah.
All right, so now you've got, some of that cargo made up by Freda, the Explorer keyword, which I guess is redundant on the hoist. But there's still enough cargo here. You could put on a captain, a helmsman, some kind of same action twice, oarsman.
Yeah.
And then you've got, still 3 open cargo spaces to snag some of the best goodies from an island. Yeah. And secret hold protects them from being lost in boarding attempts.
Yeah, it's an okay hoist. Yeah, it's a solid ship overall, because hoists are, but I would say the USS Strong Arm is a little bit better hybrid. I think it's 17 points for broadsides attack. But it's a solid hoist. I don't know, there's other hoists that kind of blow it out of the water, like the Frontier. The Buscador has 7 cargo for 4 less points, so even for the Spanish, it's good, because of course hoists pretty much always are good, but it's a little, I find it slightly boring or underwhelming considering the ones we know about, for me at least. I love the name, but I feel like the name doesn't do it justice. I feel like it should be even better, even if it's more expensive.
This one just isn't all that special. I mean, I would put this near the bottom of that hoists ranking that I did a while ago.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It just doesn't have any exceptional stats or abilities.
Yeah, it's pretty typical. It's kind of like rolling all the typical quality is hoist into one. It's a little predictable, I guess. So
Yeah.
it's not too exciting for a hoist, at least, which are exciting. But
I'd say even less exciting is the next ship on the list.
I disagree, but we'll see. So the next one is a Spanish native canoe set with the tribal chieftain, of course, from Savage Shores, as usual. Limited edition. So limited edition native canoes, that would be fun to see. Number 205. So these native canoes cost 11 points, which is assigned to their chieftain crew, of course. Each one mast technically, but they don't really have masts. And then 2 cargo, L+S move, 4S cannon, and give the ship a move action, but do not move her. Instead, you may transfer 1 treasure from any ship with an S of this ship to this ship. So, and then there's no flavor text, unfortunately, but this I found really interesting because it's very similar to the American native canoes, but you have to give up the move action, which totally nixes them a lot.
Yeah.
So the American native canoes are a point less. They have a better functioning ability, so you don't have to give up the move action, and they have 2S cannons, so they're far better. That being said, this is still an amazing native canoe set for the Spanish.
Your mic is dipping out for me.
Yeah.
Mine?
Yeah.
I think it's the background noise on you guys, so I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of background noise, so I don't know.
But based on having read the description, I did want to say it sounds like you can transfer gold from enemy ships, and my thoughts are you could get at submerged submarines or sea monsters with this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, does it
they
say
could just ram you out of the way, but
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I like these ones a lot. I think they're great just on their own too as gold runners because LS speed with 2 cargo, that's just amazing in general.
Yeah, that's real good.
LS speed 2 cargo.
Yeah, in campaign games, I could see these easily becoming abused and OP, just like the other Spanish native canoes. But
so now, speaking of those other native canoes, had this been released, the Spanish would have gotten 2 sets of native canoe.
Oh boy!
Could you, in theory, control each set with only 1 chieftain?
I don't know. I suppose so. Yeah, you're only supposed to need 1 per nationality. So yeah.
Well, so that would be interesting because the Spanish would therefore be the only ones with 2 different sets of canoes.
Would this fall fly the no duplicates rule?
No, canoes don't.
No, because canoes are generic, I believe.
Yep.
They can stack.
Generic ships.
Or something. Because
generic ships.
The chieftains are generic crew, so you can use more than 1. So, yep.
Yeah. So that's interesting then.
Yeah.
Using these in conjunction with the other set of Spanish canoes.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Possibilities to that.
Yeah, so I guess the ability is still really good if you can take from enemy ships. I didn't notice that at first. Thanks for pointing that out, because that does make them. They're still not as good as the American native canoes, but they are really good. So this is into overpowered territory without a doubt. So
yeah, especially since you can combine them with the other set.
Yeah.
Ah.
Oh boy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna jump into the
can of worms for like rules and whatnot.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump into the next piece on the list. We're actually moving into crew here now. This one, American crew, Shinji Smith, 3 points. He's a basic re-roller. I'm gonna read his flavored text and then actually move on to the next crew if nobody objects, because this one's not interesting. He's just a 3-point re-roller.
Well, I'd say that's significant for the Americans.
Well, I did want to read the flavor text.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, he's American, and he would be a unique 3-point re-roller for them. But there's not a lot more you can say about that, because they didn't get one before this, and then they would have gotten one now. Flavor text. Anyway, Shinji Smith's past experience of life on mysterious islands, has proven invaluable to the American exploration of new regions. Shinji, however, is still looking for a place to call home.
Yeah. So that's why I talked about that in the poll at Miniature Trading, and in the Facebook group, I talked about how some named crew come back with Shinji still looking for a home. So, oh well, I feel bad for him now, I guess. Right? Yeah, I think it's great for them to get the reroller too. They have so many of those combo named crew with SAT or EA built in for like 7 points. So he'd be great with those.
Yeah.
Especially if you already had Wayne Nolan, who's essentially free. You could use both. That'd be great.
Yeah. You've got, with Shinji now, you've got, three sources for the reroll for the Americans. You've got Jonathan Harden, you've got Nolan, and now you've got Shinji. And that's really good for the Americans because they've got so many of those combo crew.
Yeah.
The fact that this guy is just a reroller is significant because at 3 points, he can now fit into any American fleet anywhere.
Yeah.
So this guy would have, been instantly become almost mandatory for any American pure fleet anywhere for anything that wanted to reroll.
Yeah, I guess. I think
the ability might be boring, but, this is one of those, flex abilities.
You could also,
limited availability for the faction is what would make him important.
Yeah, and you could, instead of getting Wayne Nolan, you could use Matthew Perry's +5 to get Shinji Smith and a helmsman for those 5 points, for example. And I like how Shinji also could do... They do have some crew that kind of get wacky, so Preble would be a decent one, who's often paired with Nolan, of course. But then you could also think about GWL, the original version, who's an L mover for the Americans, which is kind of weird. So you could put him on that ship. So yeah, a lot of good uses. I guess he'll find a home on ships. He won't in the islands.
Looking at Cazador here, it's odd that there's no steam engines, considering this comes after Mysterious Islands.
Oh no.
Then again, Pirates is supposed to be set roughly in the Age of Sail, kind of.
Yeah.
That once you start talking about steam engines, certain people get, upset.
Yeah, like me.
Not just you. There were like a bunch of people were like, no, we don't want any steam.
Oh yeah, of course. All right.
All right, so talking still God Mason for you because Shinji is.
He's of limited talking value. The next one down is Pierre Aronnax, who also makes a reappearance for Mysterious Islands. Back then, he was a reference to Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I guess he is again now. This version is a 4-point pirate. No, not pirate. I scrolled. This is a 4-point French crew. His ability was originally, this ship has L cannon ranges against sea monsters and can double that range against sea monsters, but the later draft of this crew was this ship's cannons have a range of 2L against sea creatures.
Yeah.
And then the flavor text is, I guess I'll read the flavor text first. Yeah. Changed by his time aboard the Nautilus, Pierre Aronnax continues his quest to understand the mysteries of the deep. He is hungry for knowledge of the strange beasts haunting the coasts of the savage shores. The beasts, however, are just hungry.
Watch out. Jurassic Park in the 1500s.
Yeah.
I liked the original version of the ability more. I think they should combine them because sea monster-specific abilities aren't very good because sea monsters aren't very good.
Yeah.
This is basically kill Namazu and that's it.
Yeah. The original version of the ability was 5 points, and they decreased it to make it a little worse, but I think it's interesting, but yeah, it's really funky and super gimmicky. It's so niche that it shouldn't be this expensive, like 2 points.
Yeah.
I think the L booster should have been 4 points instead of 5, so yeah, this guy should be pretty cheap, definitely. So. Nice.
I guess that's all we had to say, so Xerax, take it away.
All right, we got another familiar face coming back from way all the way back in Spanish Main. We have our first pirate crew, 207B. Oh, so she would be with Pierre here. Yeah. We have the return of Jenny Gallows. Whoa. Yeah. And for 4 points, this current version, you get Hostile Spain, Captain Explorer. However, the original ability, before changes, Hostile England, Captain. Crew of any nationality may use their abilities on this ship.
For 6 points.
6 points.
For 6 points.
Yeah.
Flavor text reads, Jenny Gallows' newly recruited crew may sail for plunder, but Jenny now sails the savage shores to save the one thing that Spanish could not take away that is truly priceless, the life of her son, Cannonball Gallows. Well, that's nice, I guess. I think I like the original version of her better. Here, the 6 point version.
Nah, I think it's like almost the same as Crimson Angel from Rise of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
The second version is crazy.
Oh, in that case, then.
Yeah. We've never seen a Captain Explorer. For 4 points, we've never seen that. It's so good for hybrids. It's like overpowered.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I hadn't thought of that.
It's so good. Like Executioner could use that. So many ships could use that. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like that's something that shows up on customs like reasonably often. It's like, why didn't Wizkids do this if they did Captain and Helmsman? But we never saw it. So yeah. Yeah, I think the second version is really interesting and kind of like overpowered just because of how good it is for hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
So now then, here comes the debate now. If this version had been released, which version do you use? Do you use the original Spanish main version, which has the +1 gold ability?
+2.
Which has been... Oh, yeah, that's right. She's +2.
Yeah, it's really
which
good.
has been proven to win games.
Hmm.
Do you use this version, or do you use the Barbie Coast version, which I forget exactly
Barbie Coast?
Barbie Coast.
Oh, new set.
Barbie Coast.
New set. Oh, it's like a collaboration between Wizkids and Barbie. Yeah.
Look out, there's some
Sponsored by
handsome
Mattel.
Ken dolls coming right at you.
Oh boy.
Roll a d6 to see if Ken wants to let's go Barbie.
Oh my God.
Result of 6, try again with the D12.
Yeah. We know that Xerx's brother is going to make it a new custom set now based on Barbie, so they started basing it on all sorts of other stuff, like
or
Bionicle.
El Cazador will do it.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's listening. Yep, yeah, he'll do it. We got Bionicle, might as well go Barbie, so.
Actually, if he did a Barbie set, I might seriously play test it, because that would be really funny.
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
I'm excited.
I think Woelf made some joke about that a long time ago on a miniature trade. It was similar to My Little Pony, but not quite.
How do you know it was a joke?
I hope so. Yeah, he probably mentioned it to Mike Mulvihill at Wizkids or somebody. Anyway, I don't know. On that question, though, I think the +2 gold ability would still be a slightly better crew for 3 points, but both are amazing. So that's a tough one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That'd be a big
So, and
decision.
about the quick thing about JW, he does, I think, have like... I think he just told me he recently finished like making the drafts of a third set.
Yeah.
I mean, he still hasn't put out all the final pieces to the first one, which is, I think, is like the Seas of Doom or something. And then his second one is something like Dark Tides, and then the third one, yeah, I'm going to let him talk about that if and when he decides to get around to doing it. All right, so we've talked about Jenny, or Jenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jenny.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, so this is another little tidbit that you'll see in this original Spanish main spreadsheet. She used to be called Jenny Castle with a J for Jenny. So it should be Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny Castle. But anyway, so the next one, I'm going to take at least two, or the next two, because Abandoned Charts is actually one we see in Return to Savage Shores, and we're going to go over that in a set review episode later on, so I'm not really going to cover it. It would have been an LEUT, Unique Treasure number 208.
But the next thing up is quite interesting.
Yeah, so Abandoned Charts, I'm pretty sure same ability and stuff. One thing about Abandoned Charts real quick, in the note, if you scroll to the right of flavor text, I did include a treasure value column because Wizkids had that in their spreadsheets, and it's really cool to have that information in case, stuff got printed again. So this one was probably a typo, like I confirmed with Woelf, it was probably a typo, but this card was going to have 2 zeros and 10 non-UT coins total, which would bring it to 11 total coins on the card, which is a huge amount. So it'd have the 9, and then it'd have the UT, and then kind of like in the original Spanish main days, there would be like a second coin in like the bottom left when the card is face up. So an 11 coin UT. I guess it was a typo, but still kind of a fun little novelty to mention. But anyway, I'll just peek at the next one. It's
the
a
zero makes it interesting.
Exactly, yeah, 2 zeros on the same card, which is fun. You normally only see that on the treasure cards from Fire and Steel. Yep. The next one is a French Cargo Master, so 5 points, number 209, limited edition crew, and I've already talked about how I don't like Cargo Masters because they should have a cap on it, on the ability, blah, 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 but obviously this would be a huge boon for the French, even though I don't want them to get this.
Yeah, this would be ridiculously powerful on some French ships.
I'm thinking the Lee Blue. Anyone else?
Le Bonaparte.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah, put more crew on the. Yeah, put even more crew on Le Bonaparte.
Especially since, if you got somehow managed to get your hands on like 2 or 3 of these guys, since they're generic crew, they can stack up.
Guys, what does this do to Le Solitaire?
That's still a bad ship.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Oh, hey, that's where you put the Cargo Masters.
Maybe.
Because it's got, the cap space to fit 3 of them, maybe, at once.
Well, cargo masters don't technically take up space, I think.
I'm talking about like the points.
Okay.
They cost 5 points each.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Did you also want to start Chest of the Jik and Inky, Ben?
Oh, sure. Yeah, if that's all right with everybody. This one's really interesting. Yeah, thanks for that, because the Jik and Inky makes a return in a way, not as a ship. I almost had this in the poll for the true or false, because I would think it interesting, like the Jik and Inky returns as a unique treasure would be the answer, true or false. So it's actually true, so here we go. The numbering is exactly as I saw it on the documents. So Cargo Master is 209, Chest of the Jik and Inky is 29A instead of B, which is kind of funky,
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Anyway, yeah, so they would have had Cargo Master with a UT on it, almost like the Pirates of the Caribbean, some of those crew for two first. Yeah. So this is 209A from the original Savage Shores. Chest of the Jik and Inky is a really interesting UT. Before this treasure is unloaded at your home island, roll a d6. On a result of 1 through 3, eliminate all of the ship's crew. On a result of 4 through 6, randomly choose 4 face-down coins from any wild islands and place them face up on your home island. So,
oh my goodness,
it's bizarre.
This is a UT that you use when your opponent is using heavily crewed up gold runners and you're using empty gold runners.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, you're using something like the Banshee's Cry or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's high risk, high reward.
Ooh.
One thing that's a big problem that would have to be corrected, it says, before this treasure is unloaded at your home island. It doesn't specify when. I would assume it's like right when you unload it or are about to, but you could do it right when you load it. It's really weird. So you could like lose crew on the way home to lessen the negative effect if you rolled badly. Or you could try to time it in terms of like home island rating. Or if you tried to build a fort. So I guess it doesn't specify, which is a big problem, because you could like roll right away when you get it and then take 4 coins. Imagine if it's the first turn, you could use those coins to build like multiple forts on other islands right away.
Oh, man.
So yeah, this is a mess. It's really interesting, but it would need some house ruling or pirate code action to make it fair.
I think it's even messier if the 4 coins you randomly chose happen to be all UTs.
Yeah, like trees on your home. Yeah.
Or like, Altar of the Loa.
Yes.
For whatever reason. Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey. Well, this is a little bit weird, but suppose one of the treasures you found was like wolves.
Oh,
you had to wind up with wolves on your home island.
Yeah.
Like, that's no fun, and I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, that'd be
But now you've freed up an island out there somewhere.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, this could be crazy. Oh, or you could get zeros from the charts card. From the card above.
Yeah, place in a Fire and Steel Pure game. We're like, well, we both know what we're going to do. Here come the zeros.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. And let's see. Up next was an English Cargo Master. Again, we could talk about the ramifications of that in the future. I think Xerax should get to discuss the last unreleased ship. You want to introduce that for us?
All right, cool. So, drum roll.
Here we go.
All right.
It hurts my ears.
Sorry. Number 300, the special. Oh boy, it's special.
Yeah, if you see the note, it has a little extra too. So.
Yeah. Okay. So number 300, the mail-in ship. All right. So, collect assume 10 Savage Shores, Return to Savage Shores packs,
something like
whatever.
That.
Well, they're doing them with little included stories.
Or it could have been the story inserts, either or.
Yeah,
we have here.
Inserts.
Yeah, we have the American ship Tenacious. Huzzah!
Yay!
And for 23 points, you get a 3-master with 7 cargo, base move L, 4S, 4S, 4S cannons. That's not very good. And we have a hoist ship. Ooh, cool. 3rd hoist for the Americans. Secret hold. If this ship is within S of a friendly ship when it is given a move action, this ship gets plus S to its base move. This
no
seems
flavor text.
Horribly overpriced. Yeah, no flavor text.
Yeah.
This seems horribly overpriced.
Yeah. I agree. My problem with this is it's the most expensive hoist. It's like the second most poorly armed. Okay, what this is it's Buscador with more cargo, slightly better armament, but still not good armament.
Yeah, same cargo.
Wait, same cargo? I thought Buscador... Oh, yeah, Buscador has... Okay. It's a more expensive Buscador with slightly better, but still terrible guns, and its ability applies to friendly ships instead of enemy ships.
Huh.
And Buscador is already not the best. This is, I'd say, easily the worst hoist.
I'm not totally sure, just because the more trips you make and the more friendly ships you can be within S of, this could be a powerhouse, especially in big games. I think the Maui's Fishhook is it's pretty meh. And even the Brazos del Dios that we saw above, if this one was combined with like the American Cargo Master, even though I don't like them, and then you had a nice big treasure operation with a lot of friendly ships around, this could move LSS every turn. The helmsman with like a lot of cargo, so it's not great for hoist to say the least. But between the abilities and the possibilities with the cargo master, it could be a beast with a lot of points available in a big game. But yeah,
my setup for
I'm looking at this again.
My favorite setup for Frontier, not to interrupt you, Xerax,
go ahead.
Is I'd say still considerably better. You get Sat, Wayne Nolan, Cargo Master, and Helmsman on board. You're moving S plus S plus S, and you have Sat and a reroll every turn.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's definitely a better ship.
And that's with 8 open cargo.
Yeah, I'm just not sure yet if the Tenacious is the worst hoist. I think it's I'm too early in my process to say that, but yeah. Yeah, there's no clear text in the Wizkids document, and then it said mail-in, but it didn't say like how you would get the mail-in. So that's why it's there, but there's not additional information in the Wizkids docs.
So I'm looking at this again. This is probably actually not as bad as I first thought it would be.
Yeah.
I still think it could be cheaper because of the ability, but I'm now thinking about combining this with the American native canoes.
Yeah,
because those can move pretty darn quick on their own.
Yeah.
Combine the hoist ability with the ability of the canoes, and you've got gold flying all over the place.
Yeah, and the Tenacious would get the bonus from those canoes. It would be easy to have a canoe with an Tenacious. Yeah.
Yeah, and then looking at Cazador's suggestion here on the stream.
Yep.
With Ocean's Edge, Maze, Helmsman, Oarsman, and Nolan, that's quite a lot of points for 33. But that's pretty dang quick.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
You still need to find a way to get a shipment to escort.
I'm gonna duck out early. Thanks for the episode, guys.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
See you, dude.
See you around.
Yep, have a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one I see as like a supreme powerhouse in like huge games. Like the bigger the better. Because then you have a ton of friendly ships, and then you have tons of points to spend. So yeah, I would.
If you had managed to get this for the Americans in command the oceans.
Yeah.
I mean, with how they were so squeezed in the beginning, before they broke out of the reef-in section of Calcutta, this would have been really, really good, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about CG3 actually, because they had so much space and so many canoes, but going to both those wild islands, and they already had both hoists working there. So if you had a third hoist in there, that would be even more crazy. So yeah, I would say this is like one of those game pieces where the bigger the game, the better it would perform. But in 40-point games, the Frontier would beat it every single time.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Still, though, I'm looking at this. The plus S within, X of whatever, I think that's one of those things where it sounds better on paper than it might actually be. Although it might depend upon, is it a friendly ship or an enemy ship?
Yeah.
Even so, I think this could probably be cheaper.
Yeah.
I think this is overpriced. Just a little bit.
Yeah, Frontier.
Not quite, down in Frontier territory or Buscador territory.
No.
But not into the 20s.
Yeah.
Maybe 19 or 18 points.
Nah, I don't know.
Maybe.
I would do
I don't know.
Yeah, I would only do more just because I think all hoists are underpriced anyway, so I think it's kind of okay, but especially because in big games it would be so good. But Frontier is far better overall, but this one does have, it's got Secret Hold too, so it's got a bunch of abilities.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. So I love the name. It kind of reminds me of the Brazos del Dios, where the name is awesome, but I think they could have done a little more justice. Like Brazos del Dios, Tenacious, they both sound amazing. So
yeah.
Tenacious sounds like an English ship too. It may have been historically, but I'm not sure. But,
Possibly.
yeah.
And if we'd had flavor text, maybe we could have found out why.
I know. Yeah. It's fun. It's funny. There's some stuff missing, but anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good point Cazador has made. It's a good thing the Pirates did not get a cargo master, and it's the wee bit sad that the Cursed didn't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And again, the Cursed, they got the Master Scribe.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, he's great, definitely. All right.
There's some nifty ships in here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm scrolling back up to look at the stuff from the adventure book because I'd never heard of that stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm gonna look at that on my own time, not for the podcast here.
Yeah. So before I forget, the question today I wanted to ask is kind of two of them. Which of these game pieces would you most want to use, and which ones excite you the most? So for me, the ones I'd be most excited to use are kind of the wacky ones, like White Whale, Chest of the Inky, maybe some of the forts. I would say definitely the Triton's Fury is pretty wacky.
After our extensive exploration of the combos with explosives and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The Devil's Throat, I still find really fascinating. There's a ton of them that I would be excited about using. So, anyway, and yeah,
I'd want to use all of them maybe.
Yeah,
all
me
of
too.
These are exciting.
Yeah,
starting with the Cordwainer and just going down.
Yeah, exactly.
Except maybe the Mutiny. I don't know if I'd use that.
Yeah, that one's a little iffy.
I don't know if I'd use the Mutiny.
Yeah, it's very high risk.
But all of these forts look really cool because
I agree.
Forts played a larger role, I think, in Age of Sail than I think was realized.
Yeah.
So it'd be cool to see them more.
Yeah, I agree. I know. I really wish they had kept that in Revolution. Then there'd be 10 forts in Revolution instead of 5, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But
it would have made some of those crew that's +1 against ships, forts, crew.
Yeah.
Or ships, crew, and forts would have made them much more relevant, along with fort related abilities in general.
Yeah, Woods Rogers and
HMS Oxford +1 against counter-rolls against forts in Essevis.
Yep. Yeah, that would have been great. Oh boy. And this is, for anybody listening, this is definitely the highlights. But there are other changes that we'll see. I was thinking about maybe doing that for the next episode, still to be determined. And I'm going to release the master spreadsheet soon, so you can look for that once the podcast is out anyway. But yeah, I know we could easily rip for another 3 hours if we wanted to. It's so much.
Oh yeah.
The Porto Blanco is just insane. That was it.
Look, I've got a second home island. Yay!
I think that might maybe get my vote for the most outrageous or exciting or crazy piece, probably.
Yeah. And then if that had been in there from the beginning, then hands down that would have been the most broken piece ever, and possibly the first thing ever banned.
I think
so. Maybe it's a good thing it didn't get put into the game.
Yeah.
Because if that had been in the game from the beginning, then anyone who says Spain got shafted would never have spoken up because we've got the second home island. Deal with it.
Yeah, for 11 gold, I don't know if it'd be the most OP, but it'd definitely be really strange to have. I think you'd need serious pirate code action to rein it in, sort of. So.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But how they didn't establish the action limit until Savage Shores.
Oh,
so those people who played by the letter, meaning or those people who allowed those action limit things to go on because it said it didn't specifically say you can't.
Mm-hmm.
This might have been something that those people would have just had a field day with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people look for the things to abuse and then they go crazy with it. So
I do that to a little bit, but not always.
Yeah, kind of like Captain Jack Sparrow to a high degree in the competitive stuff. Oh man, I know. Looking at some
just in a competitive setting would have been. Yeah, especially if you consider that the chest of the Inky. You on your first turn you find that, and then you you Captain Jack Sparrow it back to your home island. So before it's unloaded, roll that dice or roll that die, and then if you're favored by luck, you get that 4 or 5. You get to draw in essentially an entire island's worth of gold straight to your home island. And if you're playing with that, first to 15 gold, you instantly win in one turn.
Yeah. I think that would definitely rival Altar of the Loa for most broken UT as is. So that'd be crazy.
And it's weird because Chest of the Inky, those are the cannibals, aren't they?
Yeah, from the flavor.
And the Chicken Inky doesn't have cargo space.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So maybe this is where the cargo space on the Chicken Inky went, into the chest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, you don't have
Like
to.
that.
Yeah, and I guess theoretically, you'd have to house rule this because it'd be too OP, but you wouldn't necessarily have to load the treasure to start the ability. So you could find the treasure with the Chicken Inky. You wouldn't have any crew because there's no cargo, and then just roll immediately and take coins. So it actually combos well with the ship.
Man.
Wow. Man, oh man. I know there's so much more we could say, but I'm sure we'll talk about it more in the podcast episodes. It'll be fun to release this to the community in the forum. Thank you all for watching. Got some more viewers than usual for this episode, so that was great. Master spreadsheet coming soon with this as the final sheet in it. And beyond that, though, we look forward to more episodes and more excitement around Pirates. So, really exciting episode number 31. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.